After Fairy Tail's triumphant victory over the largest dragon, Alderaan, Natsu and his team explain to their guildmates what really happened and uncover the truth behind the White Mage. Meanwhile, at Diabolos, George assigns Suzaku the Red Dragon, one of the formidable Black Dragon Slayer Knights, to join Skarion in hunting down the elusive Moon Dragon God. In this video, get ready for even more action as Fairy Tail sets their sights on their next target, the Moon Dragon God. Let's get started. The next day, after the 3-day-long celebration of Fairy Tail in Dramiel, the women of Fairy Tail had the opportunity to relax and bathe in a large public bath. Levi, Wendy, and Carla enjoyed soaking in the pool. Kana, carrying a barrel of beer, suddenly commented that the pool resembled Alderaan. Lysana thought the town was built to house Alderaan, but it turned out to be a popular tourist attraction. Lockie mentioned that a lot of Alderaan merchandise was sold in Dramiel, and Kanana added that there were also Alderaan cakes available for purchase. Urza expressed that she felt conflicted about bathing in a pool shaped like Alderaan. However, Mira-Jane remarked that there was nothing more queenly than relaxing on top of a fallen enemy. She then frowned upon seeing Juvia, who was shyly hiding behind a tree instead of joining them in the bath. Lucy stood up from the pool, approached the head of the Alderaan pool, and commented that Alderaan looked smaller from this perspective. However, she was shocked when the Alderaan pool suddenly appeared to grow to the true size of the Wood Dragon God. Lucy only thought it had grown because Brandish corrected her, explaining that Lucy had actually shrunk. Brandish was the one responsible for the change. Now very small, Lucy was picked up by Brandish. Lucy protested that Brandish shouldn't shrink people without warning, but Brandish argued that this was the only way to truly appreciate the splendor of the bath. Excited by the idea, Urza and Wendy asked Brandish to shrink them as well. Carla commented to Wendy that she was already small. Brandish happily shrank everyone. The Fairy Tail girls were delighted as the formerly normal bath turned into a gigantic bath for them. Kana was thrilled by the sudden abundance of booze, even joking that she could bathe in it. Wendy enjoyed the sight of a decorative tree now looking like a real holy tree. Lucy enjoyed surfing on soap as a surfboard, and Levi commented that she looked like Natsu. Kanana and Lockie enjoyed the Kappa-Wen like a waterfall. The Fairy Tail ladies made the most of their small time in the public bath. After a while, Lucy told Brandish it was time to return them to normal. But when Lucy looked for Brandish, she was gone, causing Lucy to panic. Juvia informed her that Brandish had left earlier, saying, "What a pain." Everyone was shocked and anxious. Urza couldn't believe Lysana and Mira-Jane were casually discussing their situation, while both Urza and Lucy were panicking. Lucy ran through the hallway, searching for Brandish. The hallway seemed enormous, like a giant cloister. Afraid, Lucy closed her eyes while running and prayed that no one would step on her. Wendy and Juvia went to the lobby to look for Brandish. Instead, they saw Gray, who appeared gigantic to Juvia. Despite Juvia's shouts and jumps, Gray didn't notice her, focused on reading a magazine. Carla remarked that Juvia looked like an insect, which annoyed Wendy. Juvia climbed onto Gray's shoulder, and when Gray felt her, he was startled to see Juvia, who then jumped onto him, losing her towel in the process. Carla facepalmed while Wendy was shocked. Gray was stunned, and Juvia screamed in embarrassment. Gray encountered Elfman, who asked if something was wrong. To hide Juvia, Gray quickly swallowed her whole. Gray said nothing, and Elfman was impressed, thinking Gray's act of eating a large bug was punk rock. Juvia was ecstatic to be inside Gray's mouth. Meanwhile, Levi visited Gajeel at their hangout and told him everything. Gajeel said Brandish should be arrested for her actions. Levi was thrilled when Gajeel mentioned they had another story to tell their future child. The story of a giant father and a tiny mother. Meanwhile, Lucy was startled in the hallway when she heard someone approaching, but she felt relieved when she saw it was only Natsu and happy. Instead of being shocked, Natsu was puzzled by Lucy's small size. But after realizing it wasn't normal, he and Happy then were both shocked. Lucy told Natsu that Brandish shrank her. Instead of being angry, Natsu was amused, thinking of the pranks they could pull with Lucy in her current state. Lucy requested Natsu to trace Brandish by scent. However, Natsu explained that it was impossible because Brandish had just bathed and wasn't part of Fairy Tale. They decided to find Brandish the old-fashioned way, using Lucy's small size to their advantage. They went to the town center, starting their search at a sweet shop. Upon entering, they immediately saw Brandish sitting and eating a large dessert platter. Lucy demanded that Brandish return her to normal. Brandish apologized, saying she had forgotten to return them to normal earlier at the pool. She then restored Lucy to her normal size, but Lucy panicked because she didn't want to be returned to normal in the shop. It was too late, and Lucy crushed Natsu under her weight when she returned to her normal size. The men around were delighted by Lucy's appearance. Brandish offered Lucy a spoonful of her dessert. Brandish then restored all the girls to their normal sizes, surprising Wendy and Carla. Mira Jane and Lee Sana were embarrassed as Macau, and Wakaba saw them wearing only towels. Gray spat out the water with Juvia, and Elfman was disgusted by the sight. Urza returned to her normal size, naked in front of Jello. Lucy was very upset with Brandish, who apologized again. Brandish then announced she was leaving, surprising Lucy. Brandish explained she was hunting for rare sweets, but Lucy was shocked at the drastic change in Brandish's goal. Brandish admitted she was joking and that her original goal of acquiring Aquarius remained. Lucy accepted the challenge, and they smiled at each other as friends and rivals. Meanwhile, at the inn, the White Wizard started to wake up while Toka remained comatose. Max and Warren were surprised and nervous, unsure of what to do. They had no choice but to prepare since Natsu and Wendy were not with them. The White Wizard sat up in bed, sweating with fear, and said that Alintier had swallowed the moon and there was not enough white left. Droy and Jet arrived to support Warren and Max, but all four were equally afraid of the White Wizard. The four stood by the White Wizard's bedside, watching as she panted. When she saw that Toka was still asleep, she suddenly noticed the four guards and tried to cast magic on them, but nothing happened. Max and Warren, still frightened, warned the White Wizard not to fight. The White Wizard then quieted down and excused herself to ask Warren for a drink of water. The White Wizard suddenly grabbed Toka and woke her up. Toka woke up immediately, and the White Wizard offered her water. The White Wizard then shouted out about Alintier, and it seemed Toka knew what she was talking about. Toka expressed surprise that the White Wizard was also connected to Alintier, and the White Wizard said it's no longer possible for her to save Alintier. Warren and Max wondered what the two were talking about, while the White Wizard thought that they could ask Team Natsu for help and send them to Alintier. Toka then asked the White Wizard why she possessed her body. The White Wizard replied that she did it all for Alintier. The White Wizard knelt before Toka, begging her to help save Alintier and saying she would accept any punishment Toka gave her. Meanwhile, Droy and Jet still couldn't understand what Alintier was. Toka refused the White Wizard's request, saying they hadn't informed Natsu yet, but the White Wizard was insistent, knowing that because they had recently merged, she could borrow Toka's magic. Using the glass of water she had asked for, the White Wizard prepared to use magic, even though Toka tried to stop her. The White Wizard bade farewell to Toka, saying that their experience together wasn't all bad. The water from the glass floated, forming a circle around the White Wizard, which then became a bright water sphere. The White Wizard vanished, and Toka commented that the White Wizard had used a complex magic, prompting her to ask Warren for more water. Meanwhile, in the women's bathroom at the town center, Lucy was begging Natsu to buy her some new clothes. Natsu complained that he didn't want to shop for women's clothes. Happy commented that Lucy would regret letting Natsu choose her clothes. Lucy insisted that anything would be fine as long as she could get back to the inn, and Natsu suggested she summon spirit clothes. Lucy remembered she could do that and used Virgo's maid outfit. Natsu wondered why she chose that outfit, and Happy guessed Lucy was just trying to get attention. Suddenly, a bright aura surrounded Lucy, which Natsu noticed. Happy and Natsu also had bright auras, and they all vanished simultaneously. This happened to Urza, Gray, Wendy, and Carla as well, leaving Jello and Juvia behind. Lysana wondered why Wendy and Carla suddenly disappeared, while Elfman was puzzled by Mirajane's seemingly happy reaction. Everyone reappeared together in a strange place. Natsu asked Lucy what her problem was, hearing her scream. Lucy's clothes had disappeared in the incident, so she hid behind a large rock. Urza and Gray were shocked, while Natsu asked Lucy to show herself, and Wendy begged him to stop. Lucy wondered how this happened and where they were. Urza thought they should be in Dramiel, but Gray suspected they were in a different place. Lucy realized she couldn't use her celestial magic there, so Gray offered her his coat. Natsu and the others then realized they couldn't use their magic either. Suddenly, a child ran towards Lucy, asking if she was her mother. Everyone was surprised and asked if Lucy had a child they didn't know about. Natsu wondered how Lucy could have laid an egg. Wendy suggested the child was mistaken. Then an adult female appeared, calling the child Nasha and reminding her not to wander off. The woman and Natsu locked eyes, and everyone was shocked by what they saw. The woman recognized Lucy as the Lucy from Earth, making Lucy realize she was facing her Idolos counterpart. Natsu figured out they were in Idolos, the parallel world separated from Earth with no magic. Ido Lucy greeted Earth Lucy, while Urza and Gray wondered how they ended up in Idolos. Nasha stared at her two mothers. Ido Lucy greeted Natsu, Gray, and Tiny Wendy. She then asked Lucy why she still looked young despite 9 years passing since they last met. She wondered if time flowed differently on Earth, but Lucy found it hard to explain why that happened. Ido Lucy introduced her daughter, Nasha. Earth Lucy blushed at the revelation, and Gray teased her. Ido Lucy reminded Nasha that these were their friends from the other world who helped save their world. She asked what they were doing there, but Lucy had no answer. Team Natsu visited the Idolos Fairy Tale Guild, where Earth Natsu and Ido Natsu caught up. Ido Natsu, holding Nasha, mentioned he was now a father, shocking Lucy to learn that Ido Lucy and Ido Natsu were married. Ido Gray and Ido Juvia were also married with a child named Graysh. Lucy teased Gray, asking why he was blushing now. The other selves of Jet, Droy, Elfman, Kana, Wakaba, and Macau, with different personalities, greeted them. Ido Mirajane asked Lucy about Lysana. Wendy felt a heavy aura when she met her Idolos version, who was the opposite of her in height and bust size. Wendy stared at Ido Wendy's chest while Ido Wendy explained they were now a courier guild using carriages instead of cars. Ido Levy mentioned new steam cars being developed in the royal capital, exciting Ido Natsu, who wanted to ride one. Ido Lucy immediately forbade him, saying he became extreme in vehicles. Ido Droy teased Ido Lucy, who blushed. Happy commented that the Edo people didn't change one bit, but Gray and Lucy corrected Happy, pointing out that they have kids in this world. Ido Lucy confirmed to Natsu that they didn't know why they were sent back to Idolos. She thought Prince Mystigan in the capital might have a solution, but first spoke with Urza. Ido Lucy warned Urza not to meet her other version, Nightwalker, who was in the capital, as she would regret it. Meanwhile, the White Wizard teleported to Idolos, realizing she was lost and not in the world of Alentor. She regretted bringing Team Natsu with Aqua Era to a place without magic. Now, she didn't know how to return to their original world. According to Lucy, the alternate world of Idolos is almost similar to Earthland, but there are many differences. Most notably is the lack of magic in Idolos. In fact, the entire world of Idolos once suffered from a shortage of magic. This led to a major incident where the only solution was to deplete all magic in Idolos. The time when magic disappeared from Idolos was also when they left and hadn't heard anything since. Lucy never expected to return. Now, we see Ido Lucy happily lending a sexy outfit to Lucy. Ido Lucy commented that she sees her younger self in Earth Lucy. Earth Lucy asked for less revealing clothes, but Ido Lucy told her that beggars can't be choosers. Still embarrassed, Earth Lucy asked Ido Lucy what happened between her and Ido Natsu. Ido Lucy recounted that something happened between her and Ido Natsu in a vehicle where Ido Natsu strongly approached her. Edo Lucy then asked Earth Lucy if her relationship with Earth Natsu was similar, causing Lucy to blush and deny it. Edo Lucy assured Earth Lucy that since they were fine in Edo-Loss, they would be fine on Earth too. Then we see Nasha, surprised to see two of his papas being present. Natsu asked Edo Natsu if Nasha could breathe fire, but Edo Natsu said Nasha was not a monster. Meanwhile, the child of the Edo Gruvia couple, Grage, calmly stared at Earth Gray. Gray was surprised, but the child stared because Gray wasn't wearing any clothes. Gray blushed deeply when Wendy commented that if Gray and Juvia had a child, will it be like Grage as well? Edo Gray became curious about Earth Gray's Juvia, and Edo Juvia found it scary to imagine two kinds of Juvias. Gray told them there was even a third Juvia named Javina. Next, Grage and Nasha looked at each other. Nasha smiled and waved at Grage, but Grage was too shy to return the smile and just looked away, blushing. Natsu and Gray suddenly started arguing over the interaction between their alternate versions' children. Wendy wondered why they were fighting. Happy and Carla were pleased to see how peaceful Edo-Loss was now. Carla felt a bit sad because she knew people in Edo-Loss disliked Exceeds like her and Happy. Suddenly, a woman hugged Carla from behind. It was Edo Wendy. Edo Wendy told Carla that it wasn't true and everyone had been worried about her since they left. She hugged Carla tightly, calling her soft and fluffy. Carla was irritated because the hug was too tight, and Edo Wendy's springy chest was squashing her. Earth Wendy's vision darkened in jealousy. Urza was curious about the warning she received not to meet Edo Urza. She asked Edo Mirajane about it, but Mirajane didn't know and said Edo Lucy knew more about the capital. Urza decided to follow the advice. Finally, Lucy finished dressing and joined Team Natsu. Edo Lucy told Urza that seeing her reminded her of their friends who had died. Edo Natsu tried to calm Edo Lucy, but she felt ashamed, knowing they had also killed many royal soldiers. But what mattered was that the war was over. Urza asked if this was why Edo Lucy didn't tell her about Nightwalker. But Edo Lucy commented to at least let her have a little revenge. This is the Edo-Loss royal capital. Its town center features a unique skyscraper with a mirrored image design. The capital is filled with families enjoying themselves, resembling the early 20th century in city aesthetics. Lucy, Natsu, and Gray were delighted to reach the capital, seeing how happy the people were and how the war's traces had vanished. Wendy asked Urza why she was dressed in Mexican-style clothes and a sombrero. Urza replied that she was a celebrity in the capital, and this was a precaution. Happy talked to Carla, wishing Panther Lily was with them, but Carla said that it's not like they can come and go as they please. Natsu urged everyone to hurry into the capital town center skyscraper to meet Mystigan. Wendy was excited. Team Natsu entered the royal castle casually, thinking the capital's security was poor. Two people overheard and responded, saying the town's public safety was excellent, with few ill-intentioned people. The two were Sugar Boy and Hughes, the Royal Army Holy Knights 4th and 3rd Division captains, respectively. Sugar Boy greeted Gray as Ice Boy, Natsu as Fire Boy, Happy as Kitty Boy, and Lucy as Milk Girl. Lucy was furious, accusing him of sexual harassment. Then Coco, the Royal Army 1st Holy Knights Division captain, ran up to them and happily greeted Team Natsu. While Coco and Lucy caught up, Gray wondered why Coco called Lucy Princess, and Wendy envied Coco's grown bust size. Urza asked where Nightwalker was. Team Natsu was escorted into the throne room by the three captains and Biro, the Royal Army Chief of Staff. In the throne room, Mystigan, the Edo-Loss version of Jelil, greeted them, an old friend they hadn't seen in a long time. Suddenly, Edo Urza in a maid costume arrived and hit everyone hard, sending them flying, except for Urza. Nightwalker tried to hit Urza too, but Urza caught her hands. Nightwalker was angry because they addressed Mystigan by his name. We learned that Nightwalker is the Royal Army's 2nd Holy Knights Division captain. One call from Mystigan made Nightwalker kneel in submission. Urza was stunned when Mystigan called her by her name to address Nightwalker. Mystigan told Nightwalker not to be violent with their guests. Nightwalker trembled with remorse and knelt before Mystigan to apologize. Team Natsu was shocked at Nightwalker's intense apology, feeling embarrassed for her. Nightwalker suddenly turned around to present her rear to Mystigan for punishment and a lashing. Mystigan was shocked and quickly stood her up, refusing to punish her. Mystigan said Nightwalker was still a captain even dressed as a maid. Nightwalker saluted, declaring that Mystigan's enemies were her enemies, and his friends were her friends. Carla felt uneasy about Nightwalker's change, and Urza was irritated with Edo Lucy while glaring at Earth Lucy. Mystigan asked Happy about Panther Lily and Master Makarov. Happy's casual reply annoyed Nightwalker, who grabbed his cheek. Mystigan scolded Nightwalker for overreacting. Gray commented that Nightwalker had fallen in love with Mystigan, which Nightwalker denied, saying she was loyal because Mystigan was her guiding light. Lucy found this version of Urza cute and asked Mystigan what had happened in the 9 years they were gone. Mystigan replied that many events had occurred in 9 years. They continued talking at the dining table in the throne room. Mystigan knew Team Natsu had no idea how they suddenly arrived in Idolas. Mystigan said he hadn't heard the word anima in 9 years, and they couldn't open it because they had no magical abilities. Team Natsu realized this meant they were teleported by somebody from Earthland, not by someone from Idolas. Carla and Happy thought an Exceed might have teleported them to Idolas. Mystigan remembered another target besides Earthland for the Anima Project, Alintier, the Transcendental Magic World. Wendy was shocked to learn of another world besides Earth and Idolas. Mystigan said someone from Alintier had world-traveling abilities stronger than Anima. This was the moon dragon god Selene, a dragon capable of crossing dimensions. Team Natsu was shocked because the moon dragon god Selene is one of the Pentadrakes, and they couldn't believe they would hear her name in Idolas. Lucy was also surprised by how loud Natsu was, but Gray said it was probably okay for the people of Idolas to hear about their secret mission. Wendy then openly told Mystigan about it. Wendy's polite manner in speaking to Mystigan inspired Happy to ask a cheeky question to annoy Nightwalker. Happy asked Mystigan what he knew about Selene. Mystigan replied that he knew little about Selene except that she was a dragon capable of traveling between dimensions. Nightwalker added that according to their records, the Anima Project was destined to fail if a dragon like Selene existed. They compared Alintier to Idolas during the meeting. They thought that Idolas' lack of magic might be why Selene could visit there. Mystigan mentioned that Alintier was the opposite of Idolas because its world overflowed with magic. Happy and Carla couldn't understand the significance of this since they were used to having abundant magic in Earthland. Natsu, on the other hand, was silently deep in thought. Wendy asked what Natsu was thinking, noticing his smile. He was imagining how powerful his fire would be in Alintier. Gray then noticed a circular water formation above them, and Natsu, Lucy, and Urza were all surprised. Lucy called it a ring of water as it became more violent. Nightwalker elbowed Mystigan away to protect him. Suddenly, the water released many lights, and Toka appeared. Happy was astonished, and when Toka saw him, she immediately jumped and hugged him, expressing her happiness that he was okay. Carla was slightly irritated by this. Nightwalker and Mystigan were shocked by the strange magic that had brought an Exceed. Natsu was happy to see Toka feeling better. Happy asked Toka what she was doing there, and Gray asked how she got there. Toka explained that she used the magic Aqua Era. However, things weren't simple, so she asked for a moment to explain everything from the beginning. Toka admitted that she was an Exceed from the world of Alintier. Wendy was surprised, and Gray mentioned they had just been discussing Alintier. Urza realized that there were Exceeds from Alintier as well. Toka explained that she hadn't come to Earth on her own but was brought there, and then to Idolas by the White Wizard, who was also a human from Alintier. The White Wizard had entered Toka's body to use her magic, Aqua Era, to travel to Earthland. Carla asked what the White Wizard's purpose was, and Toka remembered the White Wizard telling her it was to save Alintier. Toka fell silent. She explained that when they arrived on Earth, their personalities became unstable, and her memory of the event was hazy. Fortunately, Wendy's magic separated Toka from the White Wizard. However, The problem was that the White Wizard was still unstable when she used Aqua Era again to return to Alintier, which resulted in them being sent to Idolas instead. Happy fell asleep from Toka's complicated explanation. Toka said that she knew the White Wizard intended to bring them all to Alintier but had mistakenly used Aqua Era, as the White Wizard wanted Team Natsu's help to save Alintier. Natsu, Urza, and Gray were angry that the White Wizard hadn't asked them properly first. Carla asked Toka if Alintier was in danger, but Toka said it was peaceful before she left, so she didn't understand what the White Wizard was afraid of. Natsu suggested they all return to Earthland to interrogate the White Wizard, and he wanted to bring Nasha with them. Lucy disagreed, and Gray suggested they only bring Grage, which Lucy also rejected. Toka said she had two concerning problems. First, the White Wizard was also lost in Idolas, and she couldn't leave her alone. The second problem was more serious. Toka couldn't use magic in Idolas, which meant no Aqua Era magic to send them back to Earth or Alintier. Team Natsu was very nervous upon hearing this. Wendy asked if they could use Anima, but Mystigan said it required a bit of magic power. Lucy and Happy cried, realizing they couldn't return, but Mystigan seemed to have an idea involving Toka since she was an Exceed. Then, Nightwalker approached Mystigan and asked if he had an X-Ball left. Lucy remembered that Mystigan had given them an X-Ball before. The X-Ball was a drug that allowed a human from Earthland to use magic in Idolas. Mystigan quickly asked Urza to fetch it. Urza asked Mystigan if he was sure about this, and Mystigan replied that he was happy to help them again. Mystigan then summoned the entire Idolas fairy tale to use their delivery network for a search and rescue operation to find the White Wizard. Everyone quickly mobilized, and soon a royal guard reported to them that Fairy Tail had found a woman who was now in custody. Team Natsu immediately went to see her, and Urza thanked Mystigan. Mystigan was happy to see them again and assured them they would be okay in the end because they could overcome any problem. They all bid each other farewell. Before Urza left, Nightwalker called her and gave her advice, telling her to treasure the Earthland version of Mystigan if he existed. When Team Natsu arrived in the forest, they met Ida Wendy. As they approached, they saw she was with the White Wizard, who was sitting by a tree. Natsu was furious at the White Wizard, but Lucy calmed him down. Toka approached, and the wind dramatically blew. The White Wizard apologized for what she had done, but Toka asked why she didn't just tell them who she was and what her purpose was. The White Wizard introduced herself as Ferris, a human from Alintier. Ferris had come to Earth only a few years ago. Urza asked why Jellal's research said the white magic cult had been established for over 100 years. Ferris explained that she wasn't the original leader of the white magic cult. The true White Wizard was currently missing, so Ferris filled in the position, pretending to be the real White Wizard using her whiteout powers. Happy and Natsu were frightened at the idea that there was another real White Wizard they didn't know. Ferris explained that her purpose was to save Alintier. Nullifying Earthland's magic was intended to save Alintier from being destroyed by the moon dragon god, Selene. Ferris also mentioned that Alintier has a different problem compared to Idolas. According to Ferris, Alintier's magic power has expanded too much, making it like a volcano about to erupt. Toka couldn't feel this, but Ferris explained that it couldn't be noticed by an ordinary person. Ferris came from a family of priestesses who could erase Alintier's overabundant magic. For generations, they used whiteout magic for this purpose. Several times a year, the whiteout wizards would erase magic power to prevent a great explosion caused by the overflow of magic in Alintier. Gray and Urza were concerned about Ferris's story. Ferris continued. One day, she met a woman named Selene, who requested Ferris to erase the magic power of Earthland for her. Ferris asked why she should do that. Selene explained that she was one of the 5 dragon gods and, despite being bound together, they did not get along. Ferris was shocked to hear about the dragons. The dragons were in danger, and they needed to erase magic. Ferris asked why Selene approached her. Selene said she had visited many worlds and found it hard to find a wizard who could erase magic power, and Ferris was the first she found. Ferris refused because the whiteout wizards had nothing to do with Earthland. Selene, however, warned that if Ferris didn't comply, the entire world of Alintier would be in trouble. Celine asked Ferris if she could see her magic power. Ferris confirmed she could, and Celine said Ferris had no right to object. Ferris acknowledged that Celine's magic power was so strong it could kill dragon gods. Celine admitted she could defeat only one and might be defeated and killed herself because the power of each of the 5 dragon gods was balanced. Therefore, Celine needed Ferris's power. Ferris was very frightened. Ferris then stole Toka's body and went to Earthland. Her first objective was to control the white magic cult, but she absorbed too much of the white creed from the believers and lost control of her mind. Ferris said Celine's initial plan was to white out Alderaan to control him and use his power to defeat the other dragon gods. However, she failed because she thought destroying Alderaan's 5 orbs would eliminate his power. Instead, the real Alderaan was revived when the orbs were destroyed. Ferris couldn't understand why Celine deceived her. Team Natsu couldn't figure out Celine's true intentions from Ferris's story. Toka asked Ferris if there was room to negotiate with Celine since Alderaan was defeated in the end. Suddenly, another woman's voice answered Toka's question, saying there was no room for negotiation. Everyone was shocked to see a woman arrive above them using magic similar to Aqua Era. She said she didn't care about Earthland and Alderaan in the first place. Ferris told Team Natsu that Celine herself had arrived. While Ferris asked Celine what she meant, Ito Wendy wondered if Celine was using anima. Toka clarified that Celine was using Aqua Era. Celine explained that she liked Alintier and decided to live there. Ferris was scared again by Celine's words. Celine said she planned to kill people in Alintier daily to solve Ferris's problem of too much magic power. Ferris asked Celine what she wanted to do about Alderaan. Celine only wanted to revive Alderaan to make Earthland more interesting. Ferris realized this was Celine's original plan from the start. Celine said she didn't expect Alderaan would be defeated, so she thought he seemed weak. Natsu was furious with Celine's comments. Celine continued insulting, saying she didn't like a world unless it was ugly and distorted, like Alintier, which was full of distortion. Ferris begged Celine not to destroy their world, but Celine attacked Ferris, piercing her stomach and declaring that she had finished destroying Alintier. Wendy and Lucy rushed to Ferris, while Natsu angrily charged at Celine. Celine commended Natsu for defeating Alderaan and being Igneal's son and Ignea's brother, granting him a quick game. As Natsu and Celine clashed, Celine quickly transformed into her dragon god form. Team Natsu was shocked as the moon suddenly appeared and the sky darkened. In an instant, it became night, and the moon dragon god's presence was menacing. Celine invited them all to Alintier. The bright moon grew larger and closer, blinding them with its light. The orb hit Team Natsu, and they vanished. However, Ito Wendy remained alone in Idolas. She was surprised by the quick events, and mourning returned immediately, but she was confident her friends would be okay and cheered for her little Wendy version. It seemed everyone safely teleported to Alintier, and Wendy was happy that Celine hadn't hit Ferris's vitals, so she began to heal her. They couldn't see Celine, but Happy and Carla noticed they were standing on a cloud. Ferris realized they were now in Alintier. Celine was seen sitting in her lair atop a mountain near the moon, declaring it was time to play with the dragon child. While the group stood atop a cloud, Wendy continued healing Ferris. It didn't take long for Ferris to recover, surprising Wendy with how quickly she healed. Toka and Ferris then mentioned that they were now in their home world, Alintier. Natsu and Gray were astonished to realize they were standing on a cloud. Toka explained that this was one of the islands of their world. Lucy, Urza, and Happy enjoyed relaxing on the fluffy cloud. Lucy said they needed to find Celine immediately. Ferris was surprised that they planned to defeat Celine, but Urza directly informed Ferris that they were not doing it for her. They would not forget the harm Ferris had caused Fairy Tail. It was Team Natsu's job to defeat Celine, and they wouldn't let personal feelings interfere. Ferris understood this. Suddenly, Irene Belsirian appeared behind Wendy, impressed by Urza's words. Urza asked Wendy if she had said something, but Wendy, still shocked, said she hadn't. The ghostly woman apologized to Wendy for startling her and explained that she hadn't meant to wake up. There was just too much magic power around. Wendy realized that this was why she had healed Ferris so quickly. The ghostly woman then said she would go back to sleep, but warned Wendy about the extraordinary magic power of their world. To quickly find Celine, Toka invited everyone to her hometown to meet a well-informed person. Ferris was about to thank Toka, but Toka glared at her, saying she wasn't doing it for Ferris but for Fairy Tale. Toka then hugged Happy, saying she was doing it for him too. Happy blushed, and Carla was irritated. Suddenly, there was a strong rumbling from below. They saw a giant hand emerge from the ocean. Team Natsu couldn't believe their eyes. Natsu and Gray were especially shocked when they saw that Toka and Ferris weren't scared because this was normal in Elentier. The giant arm towered over them, making Lucy and Urza nervous. Ferris reassured them that the hands wouldn't harm people. Toka noticed something unusual about the giant hand. It had a strange tattoo-like pattern. Both Ferris and Toka found this unfamiliar. The giant hand then formed as if to grab them, scaring everyone. The hand suddenly closed, casting a powerful wind that blew Team Natsu, Ferris, and Toka apart, sending them into the ocean. Natsu, Gray, and Happy ended up in a snowy place with weird plants. Natsu angrily blamed Gray for the snowfall, but Gray pointed out that the snow wasn't falling down but up from the ground. They were in a bizarre place. Happy wondered where their friends were, and they worried about finding them since Natsu couldn't smell their scents in this foreign world. Meanwhile, in a mushy and overgrown jungle, Lucy wandered alone, feeling anxious. Suddenly, a large eye formed behind her. When she turned to look, it quickly morphed into a giant slime monster with multiple eyes and mouths. Terrified, Lucy ran as the creepy slime monster chased her, and she had no celestial keys to defend herself. Lucy screamed for help, and Taurus suddenly appeared, slicing the slime monster in half. Taurus greeted Lucy, saying he had been waiting for her to call for help. Lucy was shocked by Taurus's arrival, and he complimented her outfit. The slime monster's body evaporated into the air, and Lucy was amazed by Elentier's magic power, which allowed her to summon a celestial spirit without a key. Elsewhere, Urza, Carla, and Wendy found themselves in the middle of a strange, eerie-looking abandoned town. They soon felt a terrifying aura and realized they weren't alone. They were surrounded by distorted humanoid projections that walked like zombies towards them. The three realized these beings were made of magic power, not actual people. Preparing to fight, Urza and Wendy readied themselves. From a cliff above, a woman watched from afar, realizing that the humans she saw below were the ones Celine had brought. Yuko, one of the moonlit beauty gods, had the objective to test if these humans could serve as toys for Celine. Urza immediately requipped into her Heaven's Wheel armor and used the Trinity Sword against their enemies, while Wendy took a deep breath to use the Sky Dragon's roar. Their attacks hit the enemies solidly, but the monsters seemed to regenerate instantly. Carla was shocked that they reformed so quickly, and Urza questioned whether their attacks were effective as she continued fighting. One of the magic power monsters returned to its normal form and immediately punched Wendy, causing Carla to worry, and Urza also took hits from them. Irritated, Urza used the circle sword, creating a ring of swords that sliced through the monsters' bodies. However, the monsters kept regenerating, leaving Urza concerned about their next move. Suddenly, Irene spoke, instructing Wendy to use conceptual enchantment. She explained that what they were facing was neither magic nor a curse, but rather spiritual arts. These were spiritual art life forms created by that technique, and Irene was certain there was a practitioner nearby, advising them to be cautious. When he asked what conceptual enchantment was and if she could perform it, Irene reassured her that it was simple and noted that while magic required ether nano, spiritual arts required spirier. Irene elaborated that spiritual arts had developed so much that the place was filled with spirier, and all Wendy needed to do was absorb it and enchant her magic with it. If she gave her magic the concept of spiritual arts, they could counter the arts of their enemies. Wendy decided to give it a try, and Irene bid her goodnight, saying she was going to sleep now. Wendy focused and sensed her surroundings, noting a different energy from Ether Nano, a power similar to magical power. She realized something and used conceptual enchant, enchanting Urza with spiritual arts, enveloping Urza in a strange aura, which puzzled her. Wendy urged Urza to attack, and with the demon blade Benizakura and Wendy's new enchantment magic, Urza managed to defeat one of their spiritual being enemies. Urza was surprised her attack connected, and Carla was delighted that Wendy succeeded. Urza was amazed by Wendy's skill and praised her, to which Wendy smiled and said it was nothing, thinking she had help from Urza's mother. With their new magic, they both charged forward, defeating Yuko's summons. Meanwhile, Yuko watched from a cliff, commenting that the two were not bad. She descended and addressed Urza, saying it seemed they passed to become Celine's playthings. Urza was shocked and asked who she was, to which Yuko explained she was one of Celine's bodyguards, the Moonlit Beauty Gods, and that they could call her Yuko of Pandemonium. She declared she would show them the essence of a yokai. In another place with a fierce snowstorm, Natsu and Gray were bickering again about whether their enemy was there. Natsu pointed out that the snow was getting heavier and falling faster, and Gray told him to use his fire to burn it all. Happy, irritated by their argument, asked them to stop bickering. As they walked, they saw a silhouette, and as they got closer, they saw a woman with long hair and a snowflake-like mark on her face. The woman introduced herself as Hakune of Snow, Moon, and Flowers, one of the Moonlit Beauty Gods. Both of them were puzzled, and Natsu commented that she smelled like Celine. The woman then remarked that the men were impressive. She explained that the Moonlit Beauty Gods consisted only of women, and when she saw strong men like them, she felt an urge to kill them. Meanwhile, in a rainforest, Lucy was wandering with Taurus, wondering what to do since she was separated from the others. Taurus noted that the place was unusual. Suddenly, they noticed flowers dancing and singing. Taurus showed them to Lucy, and when Lucy saw them, she was delighted, thinking they were fancy in their own way. However, despite the flowers singing, they suddenly started cursing at her for calling them fancy and even threatened to beat her up. Lucy was stunned and quickly apologized, walking away from the flowers. Feeling down, Lucy commented that she was in a place where she and a cow were scolded by flowers, and Taurus added that it was quite thorough. Taurus suddenly noticed something and shouted for Lucy to take off her clothes. Embarrassed, Lucy asked why, and he explained that he sensed a presence and thought it was a good idea to use their old seduction strategy. Lucy remarked that Taurus was acting before anything even happened, and besides, her seduction strategy hardly ever works. But Taurus continued, saying he felt some kind of presence. Lucy then shouted that there was someone behind Taurus. Turning around, he saw a large figure approaching them. The figure introduced herself as Mimi the Immovable of the Moonlit Beauty Gods and said she was there to destroy them. Both were stunned by the size of the woman. When Mimi stared at Lucy's sexy outfit, she blushed deeply, shouting that it was too sexy. Taurus agreed, saying he thought the same thing, while Lucy stood to the side, speechless, saying she didn't fancy giant women or cows. Lucy and Taurus faced off against Mimi. Seeing her enormous size, Lucy was sure Mimi was a power type. Taurus, brimming with confidence, assured Lucy that when it comes to power, she could leave it to him. Taurus attacked, and Mimi prepared herself for battle. The size difference between the two was obvious, and even though Taurus was at full power, his attack seemed to have no effect on Mimi. Lucy couldn't believe that Mimi could overpower Taurus so easily. Determined, Lucy switched to her star dress, Taurus form. She thought that if the two of them pushed together, they might stand a chance. Positioning herself behind Taurus, Lucy helped push, but they still couldn't match Mimi's strength. Mimi, finding their efforts pitiful, knocked them both down. Taurus quickly moved to get off Lucy, worried about her, but Mimi, noticing Lucy's melons, commented on how hot she looked. However, she wasn't going to lose, especially for Celine. Realizing that Mimi was one of Celine's minions, Lucy was taken aback when Mimi used the immovable sword, cutting down all the trees behind her. Lucy was shocked by what happened and wondered what kind of magic that was. Mimi revealed that it was spiritual arts, the power of tempering a person's mind through discipline. Meanwhile, Natsu and Gray faced Hakune. Gray wasn't keen on the idea of two guys against one girl. Natsu, on the other hand, didn't care whether it was a girl or a guy. However, they both agreed that 2 against 1 seemed unfair. Happy, feeling left out again, was annoyed. Hakune just smiled and told them not to worry about it. After all, there were more people around. Gray was puzzled by her words. Suddenly, figures emerged from the ground, catching them off guard. Hakune explained that these were snow fairy toys, with the women sleeping in the depths of their hearts. Suddenly, Juvia appeared and embraced Gray, which shocked him. He asked why she was there, and she responded that it was because he was there. Gray shivered, saying she was cold, and asked if she was a doll made of snow. Meanwhile, 6 women embraced Natsu. He maintained a poker face as the women called his name. Gray's eyes widened when he noticed how many women were around Natsu. Even Happy was hugged by Carla and Toka. Hakune explained that the women in their hearts soak up their lives. Juvia wouldn't let go of Gray, and Lucy told Natsu that he could touch her as much as he liked. Lisana reminded him that she was supposed to be his bride when they were kids. Urza invited him to bathe together again, and Wendy said Natsu felt like her older brother. All the women surrounded Natsu, who remained still. Hakune laughed, saying men couldn't refuse the women they loved. But Natsu suddenly broke free from the women holding him, finally achieving freedom. Natsu stated that they were just dolls and smelled different from his beloved friends. Gray also broke free and added that the real Juvia was even crazier. Meanwhile, Happy enjoyed the attention from the 2 women. Gray didn't know what to say to him, while Natsu suggested he could stay like that forever. Hakune was shocked that the spell didn't work on them. She said that human feelings prevent them from striking even if they know they are dolls. She commented that this was dirty wonderful. It seemed she had to sap their lives herself. Natsu and Gray felt something strange while Hakune smiled. Meanwhile, Yuko summoned Pandemonium, Itenmomen. Wendy and Urza were worried as it was a Japanese cloth monster that strangles people to death. Yuko used it against them, but Urza fought back with her weapon. She tried to cut it, but it couldn't be sliced. Instead, it wrapped around her sword. Wendy was concerned, but Urza managed to requip and escape. Next, Yuko summoned Pandemonium, Kasha, a monster that steals corpses and takes them to hell. Fortunately, Wendy and Carla managed to dodge it. Carla wondered what was happening as Yuko kept summoning different creatures. Then came an Aninra, a monster made of smoke, which Yuko called a yokai. It attacked them, making it hard for them to breathe due to the smoke. Yuko declared that they were unfit to be Celine's toys after all. As they lay on the ground, Yuko said they were too weak. That was enough for them, and it was time to eat. Switching to another place, besides their goal of finding Celine, Ferris and Tuka had been separated from everyone else. Tuka asked what they should do. Ferris suggested they head to the Whiteout Temple. Tuka wondered what that was. Ferris explained that it was where the Whiteout priestesses like herself live. She added that the Grand White Priestess there might be able to help them. Back to Mimi and Lucy, the oversized Mimi easily overpowered Lucy. She unleashed a barrage of kicks and punches, but Lucy managed to dodge her attacks. Mimi was impressed by this. While hanging from a tree branch, Lucy used her star dress, Aquarius form. Mimi got excited, saying it was another sexy form. Using aquametria, Lucy unleashed a torrent of water, but Mimi drank it all. Lucy couldn't believe it. Mimi remarked that it was rich in minerals. She counterattacked with an immovable fist, a powerful blow that sent Lucy flying and destroyed more trees around them. Mimi struck a pose to show off her muscles. Lucy summoned the white ram, Aries, just before falling to the ground. Aries apologized for not being able to cushion her fall. Mimi was surprised to realize that Lucy could control yokai like Yuko. Aries explained that she wasn't a yokai and then apologized. They counterattacked with a wool bomb, which surrounded Mimi. However, Mimi enjoyed the feeling. Scorpio followed up with another attack. This brought Mimi back to serious mode, and she said it was enough. Mimi then attacked with an immovable hurricane, catching them inside and making Lucy dizzy from the spinning. As Mimi attacked again, Lucy summoned Capricorn, who came to her rescue. He wondered what was going on. It seemed that despite his slender body, Capricorn had a decent grasp of martial arts. He fought against Mimi, but it wasn't enough discipline-wise, so Mimi knocked him to the ground. Lucy couldn't believe it. Mimi clarified that their summoner lacked experience. However, Capricorn countered that she was still maturing. Mimi pitied him, saying that if his summoner were stronger, he would be able to exert his strength to the fullest. Capricorn disagreed, stating that serving Lucy was a blessing for him. Lucy was touched, but Mimi was unimpressed. She then used her immovable duet to finish their fight. Lucy worried for Capricorn. Lucy wondered if the strength of her spirits was connected to her power. Mimi replied with uncertainty, stating that it was true for her companion Yuko, whose summoning abilities determined the strength of the yokai she called upon. Lucy realized that even though she could summon spirits whenever she wanted without keys, it still wasn't good enough. Mimi punched Lucy again, sending her flying and crashing to the ground. Mimi commented that Lucy needed more discipline. Struggling to stand, Lucy admitted that she thought she was doing her best in her own way. She fell again and started to cry, acknowledging that her power was still weak. Switching back to Natsu and Gray, they are still facing Hakune. Natsu asked what is her magic power. They were freezing, and Gray wondered if it was some kind of freezing magic. Hakune used the diamond effect, causing them to gradually freeze and become immobilized. Natsu couldn't use his fire, and Gray's ice resistance was ineffective. Even Happy was affected. Hakune explained that her spirit arts could freeze magic power, curse power, and spirit arts, anything that couldn't be seen. Natsu and Gray were frustrated as they couldn't do anything. They were completely frozen, while Hakune approached Natsu and called him a lovely gentleman, wishing him to sleep in her ice forever. All the Fairy Tail Guild members there had been defeated. Meanwhile, Celine was on the terrace, commenting that they couldn't even defeat her moonlit beauty gods, which was disappointing. She wished for them to become more distorted. Celine called her girls and told them not to kill the Fairy Tail members, but to bring them to her. She had a great idea for a cruel and delightful party. Switching over to Black Moon Mountain, we then see a Japanese pagoda where Celine is bathing. After her bath, her attendants helped her dry off and get dressed. Celine smiled because in front of her were Gray and Natsu, tied up. Celine apologized for making them wait, explaining that she needed to take a hot bath 3 times a day. Gray called her a pervert for bathing in front of men, while Natsu demanded they be released immediately. Celine explained that, by nature, dragons were not accustomed to wearing clothes. However, in her current form, she found it better to adapt to human habits. Gray asked where they were, and Natsu remembered that they had been frozen. Celine explained that they were on Black Moon Mountain, the place in Alinter with the best view of the moon. The moon in Alinter neither waxes nor wanes. That's why she loved this world. Natsu didn't care about her explanations and challenged her to a fight, asking if that wasn't what she wanted. She replied that she didn't want to fight but desired entertainment. She didn't want to eat people or take over the world. Her simple wish was to drink and party while watching the elegant moon. This made Gray and Natsu think, and Natsu asked if she was a good guy. Celine's aura suddenly changed, and she said that as long as she was enjoying herself, it didn't matter if one or multiple worlds were sullied or destroyed. Natsu then realized that she was a bad person. Celine admitted that she was the reason why the magic power in that place was overflowing beyond its normal limits. She wanted to see what would happen if ever. Gray responded, based on what they knew, that it would explode. Before that, Celine wanted to play with them on Black Moon Mountain. So, it was time for a feast. Women arrived carrying food and drinks. They sat down and ate, while Gray and Natsu remained tied up in the center, as the women enjoyed themselves, singing and dancing. Gray wondered what was happening, while Natsu was annoyed by the smell of the food. A woman approached Natsu and asked if he wanted what she was holding, but he declined. Another woman approached Gray and touched his body, praising his well-toned physique. Gray told her to stop because it was cold. Meanwhile, Mimi blushed as she noticed how toned Gray's body was. Yuko was hugged by two women who found her extremely cute. The women continued to enjoy the festivities. Gray asked what the women wanted. Celine replied that wasn't it delightful for a woman to drink with a captive man to liven up the party? She then encouraged everyone to sing and dance. It was a wild party on a moony night. The dancing continued as the woman next to Gray kept touching him. Nearby, someone was drawing Natsu while women danced around him. Mimi kept drinking, while the others kept drinking and enjoying themselves. Now, Celine said it was time. She called Yuko's attention and asked if everything was ready. Yuko confirmed that the preparations were complete. From the heaven filled with the bodies of women to the hell of she-demons, it was all set. Celine signaled to the moon, causing it to suddenly become brighter. Gray and Natsu were astonished as the moon grew larger and larger. The surroundings became extremely bright, and the place suddenly changed. A hole appeared, pulling Natsu into a cave-like area. He was confused about where he was and wondered when he had arrived there. While searching for Gray, a voice explained that this was the bottom layer of Black Moon Mountain. This place, called Onii-Chan, was where the yokai of rivers and mountains resided. Celine revealed that Natsu and Gray were now in separate locations. She wondered if they could defeat the yokai there and make their way back up. She and the others would watch their struggle to spice things up, referring to their ongoing party. Gray was irritated by what Celine was doing to them. Natsu, however, smiled, finding it 100 times better than being their sideshow. He said it didn't matter if they were fighting yokai or demons. He was all fired up. Suddenly, a creature appeared, and Natsu prepared himself. The creature seemed to be holding an umbrella, but Natsu defeated it effortlessly with his fire dragon's iron fist. He claimed that the yokai were no big deal, and more creatures appeared, only to be easily defeated and knocked down by Natsu. He then asked who was next. A snake-like creature appeared behind him, which piqued Natsu's curiosity, causing him to turn and look. He noticed something strange above him and felt a peculiar magic power. Suddenly, he was entangled by a large snake, something he didn't expect. The creature, which had a human upper body, hugged him tightly. Natsu couldn't believe it when he saw that it was Lucy. Celine revealed that his friend had turned into a yokai, a Nurana or man-eating serpent with the upper body of a woman. Natsu was utterly shocked to find that it was Lucy who had wrapped herself around him. He noted that while it hurt, it also felt oddly pleasant. He then realized that her legs were gone and asked what had happened to her body. The women above cheered as they watched, laughing at the scenario. Yuko commented they should get a load of Natsu's face, while the women around her found him adorable. Hakun wondered if he liked tasty melons, and Mimi commented on how sexy the scene was. Celine explained that thanks to Yuko's technique, his friend's form had changed. She asked what Natsu would do now, and then ordered Lucy to distort him for her, laughing. Natsu struggled because of Lucy's strength. Lucy licked his cheek and said she would eat him up, which made Natsu scream. He tried to talk her back to normal. Annoyed, Lucy remarked that he was yelling too loudly right next to her chest and then attacked him. Lucy managed to knock him down, but then felt embarrassed about her lack of clothing. Natsu told her to put something on, feeling irritated but thinking he had no choice. He wondered if he could bring her back to normal with a strong punch, smiling at the idea. The audience laughed at his plan. Natsu mentioned it was the first time they would fight like this, and Lucy agreed. Natsu prepared to attack Snake Lucy, noting that her spirit power seemed stronger than usual. Meanwhile, Gray, in another part of the cave, thought that his only option was to find Natsu. He was annoyed at the thought of the women they met being perverts, drinking while watching naked men as if it were a show. It didn't feel right unless he was the one who took off his clothes. In those situations, Lucy would tell him not to undress, and that was the end of it. Gray also remembered Juvia and pondered. A woman asked if he was concerned about Juvia. Gray looked over and recognized the voice, asking if she was Wendy. She confirmed but said she was now a Bakaniko, or monster cat. Gray was shocked. Mimi commented on how cute she was, and Yuko was impressed. Hakuna wondered if Wendy was to Yuko's taste. Wendy asked Gray if she could call him Gray-sama and suggested they could play together until he died. Gray couldn't believe that even while threatening him, Wendy still looked incredibly cute. He asked what had happened to her and if the women were responsible. He also inquired about Carla's whereabouts. Suddenly, a large creature appeared, tigers who declared they wouldn't let anyone harm Wendy. Gray was astonished and couldn't believe it. The audience laughed again. The creatures were called Yokai Suko, or water tigers. They seemed very powerful, and Mimi wanted one. It turned out to be Happy and Carla, whom Wendy had commanded to attack Gray. Gray still didn't understand what was happening. Meanwhile, Natsu used Fire Dragon's Iron Fist against Snake Lucy, but she dodged. She released bubbles that eventually turned into water. She told him that fire wouldn't work against a Nurana. Natsu commented that she was like Juvia. Using her tail, Lucy grabbed Natsu's leg and lifted him from the water to slam him down. Annoyed, Natsu charged at her again. But Lucy started crying and begged him to stop. This stunned Natsu, but it was just a trick by the Snake Lucy, and he fell into her trap. She used Aquametria against him, which sent Natsu flying again. He wondered what's with her magic power. Natsu questioned if Lucy was really that strong. Celine revealed that the power of the Yuko had increased several times. Although, it wasn't magic power but rather spirit power. Snake Lucy commented that Natsu had been too careless. Natsu then declared that he was angry with her now. He used his Lightning Flame Dragon mode. Suddenly, someone asked if he really wanted to kill Lucy. The voice came from underwater, so Natsu asked who it was. The voice replied that celestial spirits could be summoned there even without a key. Moreover, there was water. Rising from the water, much to the surprise of both Natsu and Lucy, Aquarius appeared and declared that she would handle it. She mentioned that she was used to dealing with Lucy. It was surprising to see Aquarius again, something Natsu and Lucy did not expect. Celine asked who she was. Mimi recalled that she could use yokai, but Yuko clarified that it wasn't a yokai. Hakune blushed and commented that 2 women for 1 man seemed like a bloodbath. Aquarius revealed that spirits could appear there even without gate keys. Natsu couldn't believe it. Aquarius told him to stand down, saying she'd handle Lucy. The Snake Lucy was ready to face her, asking if she really thought she could handle her. Aquarius, irritated, asked then what was with her look, wondering if she was trying to seduce someone. Lucy retorted, saying Aquarius always said such things when talking to her. Aquarius called her a little brat and told her to be quiet. Aquarius summoned more water, surprising Lucy. Natsu seemed to be drowning in it. Mimi was shocked at the brute force Aquarius plan to use against Snake Lucy. But Lucy just smiled and apologized, saying water magic wouldn't work on her current form. She claimed there was no chance she could lose. Aquarius, unfazed, agreed it was a good point. Since she didn't have the but she spanks every time she misbehaved, she should be grateful she only had cheeks. Aquarius then slapped her hard. Lucy, stunned, asked what she was doing. She tried to retaliate, but it had no effect on Aquarius, who attacked her again. Natsu was astonished by the situation. It's still too early by 100 years for Lucy to defeat her. As Aquarius approached again, the very annoyed Snake Lucy was suddenly hugged by her. Lucy struggled, but Aquarius told her to remember the past. She reminded Lucy that she was a fairy tale wizard. Had she forgotten Natsu? Celine laughed at what Aquarius did, mocking the cliché. Yuko told her to relax, saying her witchcraft couldn't be broken by such things. Aquarius still didn't let go, and Lucy wondered where the current came from. Aquarius revealed that her water was a stream of memories. She urged Lucy to look and feel it. Lucy was shocked to suddenly see moments from her past with Aquarius, times when they argued but also got along. Aquarius asked if she had forgotten their bond. Lucy couldn't help but cry, especially as she remembered how Aquarius had protected her before. She wept, grateful for those memories. Natsu was surprised, and Yuko couldn't believe it. Lucy called Aquarius by name and said she was Lucy. She agreed, tears still streaming down. She said they were friends. Lucy affirmed this, apologizing to her. Aquarius was pleased Lucy had woken up to the truth and called her a good girl. However, she still needed to punish her. And so she slapped Lucy, telling her to return to normal. Everyone was shocked by her action, and Mimi called it violent. Natsu was astonished as Lucy's legs finally returned. Lucy, now back to her normal self, wondered why her cheek and butt hurt. She couldn't believe it when she saw Aquarius in front of her. Natsu was overjoyed that Lucy was back to normal, while Yuko couldn't accept it. Lucy asked where they were. Aquarius told her not to worry. She didn't need a contract or key in that place. She suggested they fight together again, like old times. Lucy was surprised but delighted by the suggestion. Lucy hugged Aquarius again, expressing that she didn't understand what had happened but was happy to see her once more. Aquarius, irritated by this, asked her to stop clinging on to her. Natsu mentioned that she had been the one hugging Lucy earlier. Anyway, Natsu pointed out that Aquarius had saved him. Aquarius replied that they should sort things out first. Natsu agreed, remembering that Gray was somewhere around. Meanwhile, Yuko, watching from above, was still puzzled about how her technique had been defeated. Mimi commented that, as expected, physical attacks were incredible, but it wasn't just that. Celine said that sometimes memories, recollections, and connections, driven by emotions, could surpass magic and witchcraft. Hakane found this interesting, while Yuko remained irritated. Meanwhile, Gray continued to fight against Happy and Carla, who were in their tiger forms. Wendy cheered him on from the side. Gray suddenly apologized to Happy and Carla, despite them looking like tigers. He used his magic to freeze them, but it didn't work. Gray was surprised. Happy and Carla remarked that it was embarrassing. Wendy explained that when used against spirit power, the power of ice was useless. So, Wendy apologized too as well. Gray didn't expect his ice magic wouldn't work against them. Wendy ordered Happy and Carla to attack him again. Gray wondered what he should do to defeat them. He felt he had no choice. He couldn't believe he was going to do this to small animals, but since they were now super big, he had to. So, he decided to hit them hard. Mimi was surprised that even he chose to use physical attacks. Yuko was nervous, wondering how many times her witchcraft would fail. The two tigers attacked Gray, but in his eyes, he still saw them as the Exceeds, Happy and Carla, so he stopped. Wendy cried, and Gray said he couldn't do that to them. Wendy sobbed, pleading for him not to bully Happy and Carla. Suddenly, Natsu intervened, kicking the tigers hard. Gray and Wendy were shocked. Gray shouted that those were Happy and Carla. Natsu was surprised to hear that. Lucy and Aquarius also wondered how it happened, with Aquarius noticing their tigers. Gray couldn't believe he saw Lucy and Aquarius together. Aquarius said they'd talk later. For now, they needed to turn them back to normal. Lucy wondered how. Suddenly, Aquarius grabbed Wendy and poured water into her mouth. Natsu and Gray couldn't believe what she was doing to Wendy and asked what she was planning to do. Aquarius told them to be quiet and watch. Lucy was confident that Aquarius's water had some healing effect or something. Wendy started coughing and asked what the water was. Aquarius smiled and revealed it was poison, which shocked Wendy, Natsu, and Gray. Aquarius explained that the water would destroy every cell in Wendy's body, making her as good as dead. Lucy couldn't believe what Aquarius had done, but Aquarius told her it was okay and to be quiet. Wendy responded that it was too bad because she could use magic to recover from abnormal conditions. Lucy was surprised while Aquarius just smiled. Natsu and Gray urged her to hurry. Wendy used her magic, and they could see she was slowly transforming back to normal. Wendy was shocked as she woke up to reality. Natsu and Gray were puzzled, while Lucy was pleased, realizing that the yokai form was indeed an abnormal condition. By using her magic on herself, Wendy had removed it. Wendy was still stunned, but Aquarius was happy that she seemed back to normal. She looked at them and said that, of course, it wasn't poison she gave Wendy, just normal water. Natsu and Gray were shocked again. Yuko couldn't accept what had happened. Natsu and Gray hugged Wendy and asked her to heal Happy and Carla too. Wendy was silent, still not understanding what was going on. Yuko said it was impossible. Finally, Happy and Carla were back to normal. Happy and Carla wondered what had happened and were told they had been controlled and turned into large tigers. Wendy felt embarrassed, thinking she had done something shameful. Aquarius reassured her not to worry, and she added that Lucy had displayed her melons. Natsu said she even pressed his face into them. Lucy couldn't believe what she was hearing. Now, the only ones left were Urza, Toka, and Ferris. Wendy said she didn't know where Toka and Ferris were, but Urza was with her. Meaning, Urza probably turned into a yokai as well. Don't talk about such scary things, Carla replied. Above, Celine said she was getting bored with Yuko. Nervously, Yuko assured her not to worry. They should prepare for the performance tonight of the Scarlet Swordswoman, whom she had strengthened with witchcraft. The cave suddenly shook, causing them to panic. Another yokai was approaching, a Joragumo, a spider yokai that takes on human form to capture prey. They were shocked to see it was Urza. First a snake, then a cat, now a spider, said Aquarius. It was dangerous if Urza had been strengthened. Wendy stepped in front of them and said she would handle it. Using her magic, she easily reverted Urza back to normal. Urza was confused about what was happening. Natsu and Gray were thrilled she returned to her normal self. Lucy and Carla were proud of Wendy's abilities. Yuko's face was a picture of failure, especially when Celine called out to her, saying she was bored. Yuko started sweating in fear. Celine added that nothing had been distorted, so she couldn't enjoy her drink. She ordered Yuko to personally entertain her. Yuko responded with, of course, promising to take them to the hell of distortion. Meanwhile, Toka and Ferris were seen in another location. Toka asked if this was the Whiteout village. Ferris was concerned because there was no sign of people. They climbed the stairs and were shocked to see the village above was on fire. They then noticed someone there. Many people were affected by what happened, and the buildings in the village were in ruins. Ferris noticed a man there and asked if he was responsible for the destruction, but he denied it, saying he was just passing by. They found his answer hard to believe. It was impossible for someone to just pass through a mountain village like that. However, he insisted it was true. Toka felt that he had magic from Earthland, meaning he wasn't from Alinter. He said that he was lost and does not care for cutting down women like that. Suddenly, someone arrived, claiming to have summoned Suzaku. It was the Grand White Priestess. Ferris asked if she was okay, relieved to see she had returned safely. The priestess said she wasn't hurt. She explained that everyone who had fallen there were Tsamika. However, all of her stars were fine. Suzaku was curious about what Tsamika were. Toka explained that they were monsters born from the hands and camouflaged as humans there. Despite the explanation, Suzaku still couldn't understand. The Grand White Priestess elaborated that those hands hadn't produced Tsamika for decades. To that same extent, the magic power of Alinter had become unstable. Ferris checked one of the bodies on the ground and confirmed it was indeed a Tsamika. All of this happened because a dragon known as Selene lived there. Therefore, she summoned a dragon hunting expert from Earthland and chose Suzaku. Suzaku was annoyed that he had been summoned without warning to be a bodyguard to defeat Selene. However, Toka mentioned that she too was brought there against her will. The Grand White Priestess asked if they could rely on Suzaku's dragon hunting skills, to which he replied, naturally. For now, Ferris requested that they tell them the whole story and allow them to explain the problem there. They moved to a room for the conversation. Suzaku confirmed that Selene was the one responsible for the instability of power in that world. The Grand White Priestess agreed, stating that they needed to defeat Selene. Otherwise, the magic in Alinter would spiral out of control, ultimately leading to the world's destruction. Suzaku agreed, saying that defeating Selene wouldn't be a problem if it weren't for Fairy Tail. Ferris and Toka were surprised by this. Suzaku called the Fairy Tail members enemies, saying they were adversaries of their guild. Toka argued that Fairy Tail members were not evil. Ferris asked if there was no way to cooperate with them. The Grand White Priestess then stated that if Fairy Tail became an obstacle, she granted Suzaku permission to defeat them as well. Ferris pleaded against this. Suddenly, the Grand White Priestess's companions announced an emergency. There was another wave of Tsamika, and this time, they were larger. She was shocked by this report. Outside, giant Tsamika could be seen, and the Grand White Priestess's people prepared to fight. Everyone grabbed their weapons to protect the village. The Grand White Priestess asked Suzaku for help, but he refused. Everyone was shocked by his refusal and asked why. Suzaku gripped his sword, and when the door opened, it was revealed that the Tsamika outside had already been cut down. Those present couldn't believe that in an instant, the giant Tsamika had been defeated. They wondered how this could have happened. Inside, Suzaku simply said, "It's done." Everyone was shocked. Ferris wondered how he managed to do it without even moving. The Grand White Priestess was thrilled and exclaimed, "That's my Suzaku." She even called him a hunk. Suzaku stood up and asked where Selene was. Based on what they heard, she resided in Black Moon Mountain. Suzaku acknowledged this, declaring that he would defeat her and, if necessary, also take down Fairy Tail if they stood in his way. Back at Black Moon Mountain, Urza was shocked to hear that she had turned into a spider. Wendy admitted she had become a cat monster, while Happy cheerfully announced that he and Carla had turned into tigers. Aquarius revealed that Lucy had displayed her melons. Lucy covered herself and told her to stop saying that. Urza wondered what would happen if Natsu and Gray had been affected. Natsu said he might have become a dragon candle yokai, which Lucy found lame. Gray mentioned that Selene lived there, pointing out that they were at the foot of the mountain. They discussed their next move. Natsu angrily declared he would climb up the mountain to beat her up. Aquarius, however, warned that they couldn't do that because the inhabitants used a different technique, not magic. Wendy added that they might not win without taking proper measures. Carla advised them to prepare once they escape from that place, with Happy agreeing. Suddenly, Yuko, the moonlit beauty god, appeared, threatening to turn them into even uglier yokai this time. Wendy recognized her, and Urza declared she wouldn't let that happen. Aquarius was surprised to learn that Yuko was responsible for turning them into yokai. Lucy requested that this time she be fully clothed. Natsu and Gray sensed that her magic power was similar to that of the Snow Lady. Wendy explained that it was spirit power, different from magic power. She then enchanted everyone's magic power with Superior, enabling them to fight. Yuko smiled, saying they still didn't understand. Suddenly, something emerged from beneath the ground, revealing the true horror of Pandemonium. Different types of creatures were summoned to battle the Fairy Tail Guild members. Now, the parade of 100 demons begins. It was time to feast. The appearance of their gigantic enemies was terrifying. Lucy wondered if it was summoning magic. Wendy explained that it was spirit power, meaning it was a summoning of spirit arts. Gray couldn't believe how many there were. More and more demons kept arriving. At this rate, they were sure to be surrounded, so Happy asked Natsu what they should do. Natsu just smiled and replied that there was no need to ask. They would defeat each and every one of them. Yuko responded that it was useless, and her demons began to attack. They were ready to fight, so Natsu was the first to charge in, saying, "Bring it on." Gray proudly stated that they had a knight who took down 100 monsters. Urza replied that compared to fighting those monsters one by one, the ones they were facing now were much stronger. Therefore, they needed to be on guard. Wendy used her Sky Dragon's wing attack while Aquarius also assisted them. Lucy used Aquametria, but Wendy was surprised to notice that some of their enemies were waterproof. This made it difficult for Lucy, which worried Natsu. Distracted, he got hit by his enemy. Yuko laughed at this, while Gray remarked that their enemies were overwhelming. Because of this, Urza decided to use Heaven's Wheel. Blumenblatt and Natsu attacked with the Fire Dragon King's Destruction Fist. Despite defeating many enemies with these techniques, even more appeared. Happy panicked and asked again what they should do. Yuko declared that this was the parade of 100 demons and that it was an infinite spirit art. The 100 was just a metaphor for their numbers. In reality, Yuko could summon an infinite number of yokai. The continuous arrival of these creatures made Aquarius suggest that they needed extra help. Aquarius told Lucy to summon every spirit key she had. Lucy was puzzled and responded that it wasn't possible. Aquarius clarified that even without the keys, Lucy could use her own magic power to summon the spirits in that place. Realizing Aquarius was right, Lucy declared they would make it a party. She chanted to open the keys of the Zodiac Gates, and each one of them appeared. The celestial spirits joined their side, ready to help, which delighted Natsu, Urza, and Gray. Aquarius smiled and said, "Let's do this." Together, they fought against the endless swarm of yokai. Each of Lucy's summoned spirits battled the yokai, while Lucy used her star dress mix, Leo and Virgo form. She rapidly unleashed Light of Regulus, Radiance of Spica, and Leon Maiden, causing massive damage. But Yuko merely responded that no matter how many they defeated, it was useless because no one could win against Infinity. Urza then approached and asked if defeating the one creating the Infinity wouldn't end it. She slashed at Yuko, who just smiled and vanished, surprising Urza. Yuko reappeared and kicked Urza hard from behind. Urza managed to land gracefully and attacked Yuko again, but the same thing happened. Frustrated, Urza grew more determined. Yuko laughed, asking where she thought she had gone. Suddenly, numerous Yukos surrounded Urza, floating in the air. However, Urza still pinpointed the real Yuko and struck her. Yuko couldn't believe she had managed that. Urza revealed that the voice from her abdomen and the voice from the paper were very different. Furious, Yuko watched as Urza declared she would end this Infinity. Meanwhile, Natsu and Gray, along with the other Fairy Tail Guild members and Lucy's celestial spirits, continued to fight against the many yokai. Despite defeating many, more yokai kept coming. Determined to defeat the source, Urza set her sights on Yuko. Yuko called for her yokai and asked if they couldn't protect her. Even as they approached Urza, she managed to take them down, irritating Yuko. Urza then kicked Yuko in the face, knocking her to the ground. Despite this, Yuko commented, "I see now. Interesting." She mentioned it had been a long time, but it seemed she had to use her hidden technique. Meanwhile, Natsu, busy fighting a multitude of yokai, noticed one wearing his scarf who was running away. Shouting that it belonged to him, he chased the yokai, threatening to burn it alive if it didn't return the scarf. Back to Yuko, her aura changed, prompting Urza to wonder what kind of power it was. Yuko revealed she used spirit art to turn herself into a yokai, calling it Omagatoki. Urza was shocked to see Yuko now had 4 arms and launched an attack. Urza struggled to evade the continuous strikes and eventually sustained a cut to her side, finding it increasingly difficult to defend herself. Yuko taunted that she couldn't defend herself with just 2 arms. Smiling, Urza agreed and then requipped into her 1,000-armed armor. Yuko was taken aback, seeing that Urza now had more arms. Urza explained that each arm was connected to the SE plug and could move separately. The only drawback was the armor's weight. Originally, she had equipped it for the Magnolia Harvest Festival parade but figured she could use it in battle too. Yuko was not prepared for this. Urza's relentless attacks caused Yuko great concern. Urza threw Yuko's earlier words back at her, saying that she couldn't defend herself with just 4 arms. Yuko's confidence waned, especially when Urza used the 1,000 arms, scattering of spirits technique. She sustained numerous cuts all over her body. Celine smiled at the turn of events, while Mimi and Hakun were worried as their comrade was finally defeated. At last, Urza emerged victorious, and because of this, suddenly, the yokai began to disappear. Gray and Loki noticed this. Happy exclaimed that they were finally safe, while Carla wondered how it happened that all their enemies had vanished. Lucy thanked everyone, to which Aquarius replied, "Don't mention it." Virgo then mentioned that she hadn't seen Natsu for a while, which surprised Lucy. The other celestial spirits conversed among themselves. Capricorn mentioned that Natsu had chased a teapot wearing his scarf in that direction. Taurus was surprised, saying it looked like a tanuki or Japanese raccoon dog to him. Indeed, Natsu was still chasing the creature, demanding his scarf back. Suddenly, the creature vanished into thin air, but it left the scarf behind. Natsu was surprised, but relieved that he had his cherished scarf back. He then wondered where he had ended up since he was now separated from the others. He spotted a man in the distance, who turned out to be Suzaku. Suzaku was observing the surroundings and wondering if he had reached the Black Moon Mountain. Both were shocked when they saw each other. Natsu and Suzaku faced each other, exchanging curious glances. Natsu sniffed him and noted that he smelled like a dragon slayer. Suzaku confirmed it and asked who Natsu was, but then hinted he wanted to guess. Seeing Natsu only wearing a scarf, Suzaku guessed he was a pervert. Natsu clarified that he was Natsu, a fire dragon slayer. He couldn't believe there was another dragon slayer in that world. Suzaku explained that he came from Earth and was summoned to that place, reincarnated into another world. Natsu, surprised, said he's also from Earthland. Suzaku called it a coincidence. He admitted he was there to defeat Celine, and Natsu responded that they had the same goal, another coincidence. Because of this, Natsu patted Suzaku and said that makes them friends now. Suzaku was confused by this. Just then, the other Fairy Tail Guild members arrived, happily waving since they had found Natsu. Natsu was delighted to see them. They informed him that they had defeated the kaiju, thanks to Urza defeating the one in charge, according to Gray. Proudly, Natsu shared that he had found his scarf, which pleased Urza. They were surprised that he had disappeared suddenly, as Happy mentioned. Carla asked if he could just use a collar. Natsu looked for Aquarius, and Lucy explained that even though the magic power there was strong, she couldn't summon Aquarius all the time. Wendy was curious who the man in front of her was. Suzaku introduced himself. He said he was summoned to that world to defeat Celine for an unknown reason. Urza was surprised, while Natsu introduced him as a friend. Lucy wondered if he was summoned like celestial spirits, and Wendy thought about who might have called him. On the side, Gray commented that Natsu had no clothes and only a scarf around his neck, making him look like a pervert. Natsu got annoyed, pointing out that Gray had no clothes on either. Gray was caught off guard, while Wendy covered her eyes. Suzaku couldn't help but laugh at their exchange. Urza told Gray to get dressed. Suzaku was amused by them. Gray asked what was so funny, and Happy replied with naked. Suzaku peered at them, still laughing, because it was a cat that said, naked. He found them highly entertaining while Carla told Wendy to stay away from him. Suzaku suddenly asked if the Black Moon Mountain was nearby, but Natsu replied that he doesn't know. Suzaku said he went there because he heard Celine was there. Gray agreed, saying that who he was looking for was indeed there. So, Suzaku thanked them and started to leave, saying he would find and cut her down. Natsu stopped him, saying that's their job. While Suzaku found them amusing, he couldn't trust them with the task. He said that if he slacked off, Fairy Tail might beat him to it. They couldn't believe what he said, and Natsu confirmed if he really meant Fairy Tail. Suzaku replied affirmatively, calling Fairy Tail the enemies of his guild. Looking at them again, he noted a fire dragon slayer, a black-haired ice wizard, a red-haired swordswoman, a blonde celestial wizard, a small child dragon slayer, and 2 cats. He paused, thinking that they couldn't possibly be Fairy Tail, as it was confusing. Lucy assured him they were not enemies. Suzaku then mentioned his guild, Diabolos, shocking them as they recalled Kiria and Scarian. Natsu asked if those were his allies. Despite finding them amusing, Suzaku declared them enemies who had injured his comrades. He told them to prepare. Urza sensed him drawing his sword and blocked it, but she was taken aback when he easily split her sword in half. Their stares were intense, revealing that Urza had also been cut on the stomach. Everyone worried for her. Gray couldn't believe that with just one strike, Urza was already injured. They quickly ran to her to help. Suzaku wondered about Urza's swift reaction to his blade. Natsu, enraged, suddenly charged at him, but Gray stopped him, saying that Suzaku was on a different level. Despite this, Natsu was determined to fight. Once again, Suzaku easily wounded Natsu, who started bleeding and fell to the ground, causing panic among his friends. Gray realized they were in serious trouble, but Suzaku explained he did it to avenge his guild. Suddenly, a woman arrived and asked what was happening. She suggested they probably didn't want to get in her way. Lucy was shocked to see that it was Celine, accompanied by Mimi and Hakune. Happy was equally astonished by her presence. Celine mentioned she couldn't help but overhear their argument about who would defeat her first. She didn't expect that the 5 dragon gods would become mere hunting trophies and called it a tasteless story. Suzaku was surprised to learn that the woman in front of her was Celine. The Fairy Tail members, seeing Urza and Natsu in bad shape, decided to retreat. However, Celine ordered Mimi and Hakune to follow them. Lucy carried Natsu while Gray carried Urza, and Celine's followers ran after them. Celine declared she would handle the swordsman, Suzaku. He responded that his guild would feast on that dragon, aiming to take the heads of the 5 dragon gods. Both Suzaku and Celine prepared for their confrontation. Celine stated that the magical powers of the moon would be the ones to kill him. The stares between the two were intense, and Suzaku was ready to attack. However, the technique he used earlier on Natsu and Urza was easily avoided by Celine. She remarked that his sword-drawing art was interesting and mentioned that the moonlight shines on the flame of the gods. Selene used moonlight flame, but Suzaku managed to evade the attack by cutting through her flames. Selene was impressed that he could do that, but reminded him that the radiance of the moon never fades. She then attacked again, this time using a different technique. A multitude of butterflies appeared, overwhelming Suzaku. She commanded the moonlight butterflies to dance. Suzaku was surrounded by them but remained unfazed. He used the Kunogi-style sword-drawing art, Underworld Drop, to counter the attack. With this, he sliced through each butterfly that Selene had summoned and stood firm, while Selene received a cut on her cheek. She asked if she heard correctly that he said Kunogi. He confirmed and said he defeated and consumed him, gaining the power of the Sword Saint Dragon Slayer magic. Selene couldn't believe that he had merely consumed the Sword Saint Dragon Kunogi. She smiled and acknowledged that it seems one gains a dragon's power by consuming it. She commented that humans truly do not understand their place. She then asked if he planned to consume her as well. Suzaku denied this, stating that he only intended to offer her to his master. Selene laughed and found this interesting, saying it had been a long time since she met someone as conceited as him. She then challenged him to come closer and see what would happen if she became serious once again after so long. Meanwhile, at another place, Mimi and Hakune continued to chase the Fairy Tail Guild members. Gray noticed this while Hakune just laughed. Gray thought about their injured companions and grew concerned. Lucy also mentioned how strong their enemies were. Additionally, Happy added that they were not familiar with the place at all. Suddenly, a portal appeared in front of them, which Wendy noticed. Tuka appeared and called them, urging them to come through. Happy was thrilled to see Tuka, and Gray told everyone to jump in. So, they all jumped into the portal together. Hakune and Mimi were surprised that the Fairy Tail Guild members suddenly disappeared. Hakune remarked it would seem they have lost them, but Mimi disagreed, saying she could still smell them. Mimi pinpointed their location and told Hakune to hold on to her. She carried Hakune, who commented that she felt like a princess. Suddenly, veins bulged from Mimi's legs, causing them to grow rapidly. She commented, "Don't be so sure of that, because the princess there was none other than herself." Hakune had nothing to say to that. They continued to follow the Fairy Tail Guild members. Back at the Whiteout village, the Grand White Priestess asked who they were. Ferris grew anxious. Gray requested a bed, and Lucy asked for medicine and bandages. Wendy volunteered to handle the treatment. Urza and Natsu were visibly in pain from their injuries, and the Grand White Priestess was utterly confused about the situation. Ferris explained that they were the Fairy Tail members she mentioned. The priestess was puzzled, saying they came to this world to defeat Selene but were defeated themselves. She added that they should leave defeating Selene to Suzaku, who she found very handsome. Gray, growing irritated, asked if she could be quiet for a moment. The Grand White Priestess blushed, saying Gray was also very handsome and that she liked being treated roughly. Suddenly, the door burst open, and Mimi and Hakune followed them in, something no one had expected. Happy couldn't believe it, while Carla asked Tuka if she'd been followed, but that seemed unlikely. Mimi explained that she had a good sense of smell. Lucy wondered if they were also dragon slayers, but Wendy said they were not. Gray noted that Natsu and Urza were in critical condition, so they needed to act quickly. Suddenly, they were all taken aback when they noticed the moon. Everyone grew alarmed because of how large it had become. Hakune smiled and mentioned that it seemed Selene had gotten serious somewhere. Mimi added that hugeness is justice. Gray and Lucy were baffled, questioning what was happening with Selene. Lucy couldn't believe that Selene could change the size of the moon when she got serious. While all of this was happening, we moved to Earthland, in the town of Ermina, where we see a strong storm surge approaching, causing Kashima to panic, while Sumiko tries to calm him down. Kashima yelled that he wouldn't calm down because the water god shouldn't be able to use his powers anymore. But now there's a storm surge happening there, making him wonder what's going on. Meanwhile, Merkfovia was watching the people from the top of a building, and Carmel asked if his power as the water dragon god had returned, to which he explained that it wasn't his power, but Selene's doing. Carmel knew it was the moon dragon god and thought that she was in another world, and Merkfovia agreed with her. She then asked if that meant her power could reach their world from another, to which Merkfovia replied that this was the power of a dragon they called God. He explained that most of his powers were gone, while Aldebaran wasn't fully awakened and still wasn't at his original power. However, Selene was different from them, and she was a dragon god who still possessed her original power. Carmel stared at him, and he added that what scared him the most was not knowing the goal of the moon dragon god. After that, we returned to Alinter, at Black Moon Mountain, where Selene and Suzaku were intensely staring at each other. Selene raised her hand and commented that the moon wanes like a swift wind, making Suzaku ready himself. Selene used the moonlight blade towards Suzaku, who was surprised, and quickly drew his sword to parry it. Suzaku couldn't believe the speed of Selene's attack, and while the moon dragon god's eyes glowed, she sent another attack at him, hitting his shoulder and causing him to be thrown back. Suzaku found it impossible because he was sure he dodged it in time, but her attack still landed. Selene made Suzaku dance with the power of her moon magic, and Suzaku prepared to use a technique, utilizing the Kernugi-style sword-drawing art, Underworld Cycle, which Selene matched with Moonlight Palm, causing a powerful explosion around them. Suzaku was thrown back, but managed to stop himself from being thrown too far and quickly readied himself again. He commented that Selene was a formidable opponent and wondered if she was truly that strong. Selene said that the flash of Suzaku's sword brought back some memories, making it seem like she was fighting Kernugi himself. Nevertheless, she declared that her next attack would end the battle. Let's return to Whiteout Village, where Hakune comments that like Selene's banquet, they expect to enjoy it there as well, while Mimi insists they defeat them immediately. Lucy and Gray prepare to fight, seemingly for a revenge match, declaring that Fairy Tail never loses twice in a row. Soon, Gray and Lucy charge forward, and Wendy, unable to leave Urza and Natsu behind, entrusts the battle to them. Ferris pulls the Grand White Priestess to a safe place, who tries to resist because she wants to watch the macho Gray fight. Carla firmly tells her to follow instructions and leave the dangerous area. Toka whispers to Happy that Carla doesn't hold back against those in authority, to which Happy agrees, while Carla glares at them irritably. Hakune launches an ice attack to freeze Gray again, but Gray counters with his own ice attack, neutralizing each other's attacks. Lucy swiftly runs towards Mimi and delivers a Lucy kick to her face, but it has no effect. She then transforms into her Leo form and delivers a Regulus Lucy kick, now with more power, but Mimi says it still has no effect. Lucy summons Gemini, who transforms into Lucy and delivers a double Lucy kick to Mimi's face, causing Mimi's head to slightly recoil. Mimi screams, asking if kicking is the only technique in Lucy's repertoire, and mocks her for merely naming her attacks. Mimi then mimics Lucy, naming her kick to Lucy's face as Mimi Kick. Lucy is thrown back, worrying Gemini, but Lucy assures she is okay. Mimi charges again, using Mimi Hurricane, prompting Lucy to transform into her Virgo form and phase into the ground, surprising Mimi. Lucy emerges from below with a Spika Lucy punch, flinging Mimi upward, who is astonished that Lucy can punch too. As Mimi lands, she comments that Lucy's movements are different from before, wondering what changed in such a short time. Lucy explains that it's because she reunited with an important friend, and Mimi might have noticed that Lucy is herself. Despite being weak, she wins because she has her friends. Mimi is visibly shocked and questions if that's how Lucy sees herself. Lucy and Mimi gradually became serious in their confrontation, But suddenly, Mimi kneeled and bowed, surprising Lucy. While bowing, Mimi admitted she had underestimated Lucy and sincerely apologized from the bottom of her heart, which shocked Wendy, who said it wasn't necessary. As Mimi stood up, she declared that in recognition of Lucy's strength, she would use her full power. Mimi shouted loudly, enveloped in a powerful aura, and began to levitate, astonishing Lucy. Mimi explained that with the power of fighting spirit, nothing is impossible, and what she was doing was levitation. Mimi shouted again and used a movable fist, recalling what Lucy did and adding her name to it, calling it Mimi a movable fist. The move hit Lucy solidly, sending her flying. As Lucy tried to switch forms while being tossed, Mimi didn't allow it and followed up with a chop to her body, which sent her flying even further. When Lucy fell to the ground, Mimi shouted again while charging at her. Since Lucy was still in Virgo form, she managed to sink into the ground, surprising Mimi, and kicked her hard in the stomach when she re-emerged. However, Mimi grabbed her leg, leaving Lucy speechless, and soon after, she threw Lucy into a boulder, embedding her there. Mimi didn't stop her assault, immediately attempting to follow up with a solid right straight punch aimed at Lucy. Seeing a watchtower, Lucy quickly used fleuve de toils to whip herself away from Mimi, successfully dodging her powerful punch. While in the air, Lucy noticed a nearby pond. She commented that it had been a long time since she last said these words. Even without her key, Lucy called out the words to open the gate of the water bearer, summoning Aquarius. Mimi was shocked when a mermaid appeared, and Lucy asked Aquarius for her help. Aquarius immediately created a massive whirlpool. Mimi was submerged in the strong current of Aquarius water, but soon it became apparent that Mimi was fine. She used her Mimi Great Guzzle and began drinking the vast amount of water controlled by Aquarius, which left everyone stunned. Eventually, Mimi drank all the water, causing her stomach to swell, and she immediately decided to charge at Aquarius. It turned out that Lucy and Aquarius had planned this all along, using Aquarius as a diversion. Aquarius asked if Lucy was ready, and as Mimi's attack went through her, she was surprised. Lucy thanked Aquarius for giving her time to prepare. Lucy and Gemini clasped their hands together, and Lucy explained that she had let Gemini handle the incantation for the spell they were about to use. She noted that while the spell was powerful, it had a long chant. Gemini continued chanting, and soon, Lucy and Gemini aimed their joined hands at Mimi. After completing the chant, they used Uranometria, which hit Mimi solidly. Mimi was enveloped by the light of the stars, and she was ultimately struck down by them. Mimi was burned and lost consciousness, and Lucy fell to her knees from the damage she had taken and the amount of magic power she had expended in that attack. Gemini asked if Lucy was okay, noting how bad she looked, to which Lucy replied that she had one. Mimi collapsed to the ground, and Lucy thanked Gemini. Lucy commented that even though the place was filled with magic power, she was now completely drained. Suddenly, she heard something behind her, which caught her attention. Concern showed on Lucy's face as Mimi managed to stand up despite taking Uranometria, declaring herself immovable. Lucy couldn't believe it and felt hopeless, but then she noticed something about Mimi. Soon after, Lucy also collapsed from exhaustion, but she felt relieved upon realizing that Mimi had fainted while standing, and she was amazed by it. After that intense battle, we move on to the showdown between Gray and Hakune. Meanwhile, we see Natsu and Urza being healed continuously by Wendy. The Grand White Priestess wondered why it suddenly got cold, and one of her companions noted that it was snowing in the village. Ferris speculated that this might be the result of magic swelling, but Wendy clarified that it wasn't the case. Rather, it was the effect of the powers of Gray and Hakune, who were both ice types. We return to the battle between Hakune and Gray. Gray immediately used Ice Make Lance, but he was surprised when his ice froze mid-air. While casting magic, Hakune commented that he had already told Gray that he freezes the magic power itself. As Gray's body began to freeze, Hakune said that no wizard could stand against her. But Gray quickly shattered the ice on his body using his Ice Devil Slayer magic. Hakune was shocked, and Gray explained that it was the power of a demon. Gray charged forward and threw a punch, but Hakune dodged, making Gray hit the ground instead. Hakune transformed into her battle form and commented that she noticed Gray had changed his magic power to divide her freezing spirit art. Therefore, Hakune used her snow wave, sending a massive avalanche towards Gray. However, Gray froze Hakune's avalanche with his own ice magic, surprising Hakune. Gray countered with Ice Devil Zeroth Destruction Bow, but Hakune froze the attack again, irritating Gray. Hakune commented that they could freeze each other's techniques, making Gray quite a troublesome opponent. Gray returned the comment, but Hakune claimed to know Gray's weakness, surprising him. Hakune cast another spell, saying Gray should sleep, wrapped in a world of whiteness, and sleep in the light of the snow. Snow began to swirl around Gray's body, distorting his vision of Hakune. Gray felt his consciousness slipping away as the snow controlled by Hakune enveloped him. Suddenly, Gray woke up in a bed, confused about his location. Juvia greeted him, startling him, and hugged him, saying he wasn't waking up earlier. Gray was confused, certain that he was with a snow woman earlier. Juvia became jealous upon hearing about the snow woman, thinking she had a love rival, but Gray explained she was misunderstanding. A voice called Juvia "Mommy" and asked what she was doing, catching Gray's attention. It was Grage, who addressed Gray as Daddy, which shocked Gray. Juvia explained that nothing inappropriate was happening between Mommy and Daddy, leaving Gray bewildered by being called Daddy and Juvia Mommy. Grage greeted Gray good morning and called him Daddy, further confusing and blushing Gray. Gray held his head, thinking he was dreaming, and suspected Hakune was showing him an illusion. Grage pulled Gray, saying everyone was there, and when they left the room, Gray saw Silver and Altair waiting at the dining table. Silver asked how long Gray planned to sleep, while Gray continued to think it was a dream. Grage excitedly called Silver Grandpa, and Juvia commented on how much Grage loved his grandpa. Grage approached Altair, who commented on how big he was getting. When Grage called her auntie, she irritably corrected him to call her big sis. Someone commented from the side that Altair was too old for the big sister thing, and Altair retorted, asking when she would wear age-appropriate clothing, addressing the speaker as Mother. Gray turned to see that it was who irritably claimed she was still young, and Altair teased her about having a grown-up daughter. Gray kept thinking it was just a dream, struggling with his feelings. Seated Gray, saying they gathered for his birthday, while Silver asked Altair if she had a special someone, to which Altair politely asked why he was bothering her. They continued celebrating Gray's birthday, but Gray kept telling himself it was a dream. Juvia then suggested it was okay to stay in that blissful moment forever. Gray tearfully admitted he wanted to stay but gathered his willpower, saying he couldn't. He explained that it was a world of happiness he imagined, but it was wrong. He shouted that it was wrong, eventually breaking Hakune's magic, shocking Hakune. Hakune couldn't believe Gray broke Mugen Setsujeka. Gray clenched his fists, saying he didn't want to be happy. Instead, he wanted to make Juvia happy. Hakune's eyes widened in surprise, and out of frustration, she angrily used Diamond Titan against Gray. Suddenly, a giant made of diamond appeared, standing menacingly in front of Gray. Gray prepared to counter, saying that Hakune thought she could defeat him with Maker Magic, and immediately used Ice Make Heavy Knights. Hakune was shocked, and Gray quickly sent his Heavy Knights to attack Hakune's Diamond Titan. Hakune couldn't believe the number of ice models Gray could create in an instant. The numerous heavy knights overwhelmed Hakunea's giant, and while this was happening, the Grand White Priestess and Ferris were wide-eyed in amazement. Wendy noticed it was Gray's magic, and Happy commented on Gray's impressive abilities, while Carla noted that Gray was Natsu's rival, so of course he'd be strong. Toka was in awe of what she was witnessing, while the Grand White Priestess, although irritated that Gray was destroying the village, was still happy because she found him hunky. Gray continued to send his knights forward, gradually pushing back Hakunea's magic. Eventually, Gray's heavy knights destroyed Hakunea's Diamond Titan, and Gray emerged victorious in their ice magic duel. Hakune was visibly damaged and eventually collapsed. Lucy smiled upon seeing this, and even the villagers were delighted with Gray's achievement. Ferris commented on how amazing the fairy tale members were, but their excitement was cut short when the ground shook violently. Toka and the Grand White Priestess were visibly worried, and Gray noticed it too. The Grand White Priestess shouted that the magic power of Alinter was swelling, alarming her companions. She was extremely anxious, fearing that even Suzaku could not defeat Celine. Carla asked if Ferris couldn't do anything since their job was to erase magic power, to which Ferris replied that as long as Celine was around, it was impossible. The Grand White Priestess explained that for generations, they had devoted themselves to balancing the magic in that world by whiting out the excess magic power, essentially erasing it. However, because Celine traveled through space and time, more magical power had accumulated in that world. Happy asked why Celine would do such a thing, and the Grand White Priestess said she didn't know the reason, but if the situation continued, Alinter would surely perish and cease to exist due to a major explosion caused by the expansion of magical power. The ground continued to shake, and a massive hand emerged from one part of the village, scaring the villagers who feared it would summon Tsamika. Another woman noticed this, and as Wendy looked towards her, more hands started emerging from various parts of Alinter, causing the destruction of towns and plantations. Even by the seaside on the southwestern coast of Alinter, these hands started to appear. The Grand White Priestess and her companions were terrified, thinking the world was ending. Toka suggested escaping to another world using Aqua Era, but Ferris questioned how many people she could carry. Wendy recognized the scene and remembered Face from Earthland. She explained that Face was a council weapon capable of erasing all magic power. She speculated that the many hands symbolized magical expansion and might be connected to this. Toka shouted that she couldn't use Aqua Era, and Ferris said the expanding magic was constricting space itself. The Grand White Priestess cried, praying for their gods to save them, but Gray arrived and tried to calm her down. The Grand White Priestess protested, saying their world was about to disappear. Suddenly, someone punched the ground, catching their attention. They turned to see who it was and heard the person declare that they wouldn't let that happen. They asked if defeating Celine would make everything right, and if so, they would stop her. It was then revealed that it was Natsu and Urza, and they had awakened and were ready to fight the Moon Dragon God. Everyone smiled, relieved to see them okay. Meanwhile, at Black Moon Mountain, Celine and Suzaku continued their battle. Celine said the time had come, and the world would distort and be forgotten in time. She said the battle had been somewhat enjoyable, but before she could call Suzaku Kurnugi something, Suzaku corrected her, declaring he was Suzaku and Celine was his prey. Suzaku was gasping for breath, while Celine had only a scratch on her cheek and commented that it wasn't bad to be defeated by Kurnugi's sword since it was also a distortion. Hands continued to emerge all around Alinter, and the people in Wideout Village were screaming that it was the end of their world. When someone asked if they were just going to leave their village, the Grand White Priestess suddenly arrived and shouted to wait. She said that now was the time to fight as citizens of Wideout Village, and wasn't it their duty to white out the overflowing magic power in that world to bring peace? One of the villagers objected, saying that even so, It was completely hopeless now with so many hands already emerging. Ferris immediately told them not to lose hope and explained that the expansion of the magic power was due to Selene, so if they could defeat her, the magic power would surely subside. The Grand White Priestess shouted again, adding that when that time came, they would use their whiteout powers to erase the magic of their world, and by doing so, they would save their world. While this was happening, Natsu and his friends went to Black Moon Mountain to confront Selene. As they ran, Toka shouted that she could use Aqua Era from there, so they could quickly get to Black Moon Mountain. They quickly entered Aqua Era, and while that was happening, we returned to the situation in Whiteout Village. The Grand White Priestess explained to the villagers that Suzaku and all the members of Fairy Tail who were there, those who did not live in that world, were fighting for it. So how could they possibly run away? She shouted, crying, that they themselves should protect Alinter. The villagers felt what she meant, and after that, Natsu and his group reached the middle of Black Moon Mountain. Toka apologized for not being able to bring them to the summit, but Gray said it was not a problem and that it was fine. Lucy and Wendy commented that even so, there were also hands in that place. The enormous hands stood in front of them, and suddenly, liquid started coming out from the nails of those hands. Toka explained that it was Tsumika. In their world, she said they called them monsters. Lucy said that if those monsters from the hands continued to appear all over the world, it would be bad, so they decided to stop them as soon as possible. Happy immediately carried Natsu to reach the top of Black Moon Mountain, and Gray got irritated because he was rushing in alone again. Lucy said they should go there too. Urza agreed, but said they should first deal with the devils in front of them. Wendy commented that she needed to check something with those hands, which made Carla curious, and she immediately asked to be brought closer to one of the hands. Meanwhile, the battle between Selene and Suzaku continued. Selene commented that she knew Suzaku's power well and praised him for having remarkable strength for a human. However, she did not believe that he defeated Kurnugi, and Suzaku agreed that he was not the one who defeated him. It was his master, a true dragon eater, George Raisin. Selene understood and asked if Suzaku ate Kurnugi's flesh, and he agreed. Selene was disappointed and explained that while there were various reasons, for a human to defeat Kurnugi was disgusting. This caught Suzaku's attention, and he asked what Selene's relationship with Kurnugi was. Selene seriously replied that there was no reason for Suzaku to know, but she decided to tell him anyway. Selene explained that the dragon Suzaku ate was one of her children, and her expression became terrifying as she stared at Suzaku, and his eyes widened. Selene attacked again, her face filled with anger as she thought about what to do with Suzaku's body as punishment. Suzaku was knocked back by her attack, but he managed to stop himself from being thrown too far and commented that he would not apologize to Selene. He explained that dragons were enemies of humans, and they, the members of Diabolos, would eat them all. Suzaku used another Kurnugi-style sword drawing art, and Selene tried to counter it with an attack while saying that it was audacious for an inferior being like Suzaku to use Kurnugi's powers. When Suzaku used Kurnugi-style sword drawing art, Abyss, it caught Selene's attention, and her eyes widened. Selene was surprised because it was not Kurnugi's style. Suzaku explained that he created that style himself and used Underworld Black Purgatory slash on Selene, hitting her solidly. Selene suffered a severe slash on her body, causing her to spit blood. After that, Suzaku stared at her intently with piercing eyes. Suzaku brought Selene down, and Suzaku's exhaustion was evident as he gasped for breath. Selene furiously said it was impossible for a human to defeat her, and she started creating a sphere-like magic while struggling. Suzaku could no longer stop her because he was also exhausted. Meanwhile, Natsu and Happy continued dodging the hands emerging from the ground, and whenever the Tsumika appeared, Natsu used Fire Dragon's roar to blast them all away. The two of them continued flying towards Selene, and Natsu commented for her to wait because he would defeat her. Natsu and Happy moved quickly, while Suzaku, tired and weakened, watched Celine's attempt. Before long, Natsu and Happy arrived where Celine and Suzaku were fighting. Natsu saw that Celine used Aqua Era on herself, and Suzaku followed her through the portal as well, leaving Natsu staring. Natsu shouted that the two had vanished, and Happy commented that they had moved to another world. Natsu observed the spread of countless hands around a linter and commented that Celine was no longer in that world, but the magic power was still going haywire in that place. Happy said that perhaps Celine did start it, but he thought that once it started to rampage, it would continue to overflow whether Celine was there or not. Irritated, Natsu asked what they should do now. Happy suggested they go back to where their friends were, and Natsu agreed. But Natsu pointed out that they missed Celine, so what would they do about their job there? Happy said they should be more concerned about what was happening now. After a few moments, they returned to Whiteout Village, and upon their return, Gray angrily asked where they had gone. Lucy asked what happened to Celine, and Happy explained that Celine and Suzaku went to another world. Toka then asked why, even so, the rampage of the hands hadn't stopped. The hands continued to release Tsumika, and Gray and Urza worriedly commented that they kept multiplying and wouldn't stop. Wendy closely examined one of the hands and noticed something about the condensation of ether nano from its magic flow, and she was certain she knew what it was. She immediately told her companions to think back to Tartaros' face. Natsu was puzzled, and Lucy commented that wasn't that the council weapon? Wendy explained that she had researched it and how they managed to move those countless weapons after the incident. Urza mentioned that Tartaros had a sort of startup device, and Gray asked if Wendy thought those hands were moving artificially. Wendy said no, that was the difference from the face. That and how they increased and decreased magic power. Natsu didn't understand what Wendy was saying, so Carla told him to be quiet. Wendy explained that the face and hands were different things, but their structure was the same. Happy was puzzled, and Wendy continued explaining that at first glance, the hands seemed to extend from the ground in different places. But in reality, they should all be connected underground, just like the face. Carla said there was no doubt about that from the flow of magic power. Toka asked if they were all connected. What should they do? Natsu answered that it was obvious, and then the others smiled and shouted that they would attack the main body. Lucy quickly opened the gate of the maiden to summon Virgo, who said she had heard the situation and added that she would be punished if they didn't reach the main body evidently. Lucy was speechless and asked if she was really listening. Soon, Virgo started digging to find the main body, and Natsu immediately jumped to follow her. Gray told Happy and Carla to take Toka to a safe place. When Toka was about to object, Happy assured her that it was okay and that Natsu and the others could handle it. Gray, Lucy, Wendy, and Urza followed Virgo and Natsu. Urza wondered if it was the right direction, and Virgo said she was following the flow of magic power. Natsu suddenly pointed out that he could see her underwear, which left Virgo speechless. Lucy got irritated with him and told him not to do that, while Gray blushed, thinking that if Lucy only knew, he could see her underwear too. Virgo continued digging underground, and before long, they fell into a cave. They were surprised that there was a cave there, and Wendy immediately noticed something on one side. It was part of a hand. Gray asked if she meant they needed to dig further down, but Urza said no and sensed something in the magic power there. Natsu also noticed something approaching them from below, and soon the ground they were standing on erupted. When the eruption settled, their eyes widened at what they saw. When the smoke cleared, they saw a terrifying and eerie face with numerous roots on the back of its neck. Lucy, Urza, and Gray were shocked and worried about the size and appearance of this monster, while Wendy and Natsu said that if they defeated it, they could stop its magic power. The monster started speaking, saying, this unseemly world. Come flowing out, evil light. Fill the world with evil. Destroy it." And its eyelids began to open, and its eyes glowed. Lucy was terrified as it started to speak, while Natsu wondered if the monster's intention was recklessness. The monster introduced itself as Alta-Face, the source of magical power in that unsightly world. It explained that the magic power distorted by the moon dragon had given it free will to destroy that world by filling it with magical power. Urza asked if the moon dragon it mentioned was Selene, while Gray irritably said that nothing ever satisfied it. Natsu shouted that they would stop this monster no matter what. Let's move on to Whiteout Village, where the villagers continue to evacuate while those capable of fighting keep holding back the Tsamika entering their village. The leader shouted for them to prepare for the Whiteout ceremony, saying they were the clan that harmonizes the world's magic power. Meanwhile, at a shrine, the Grand White Priestess was talking to some subordinates, explaining that in ancient times, there was a monster they described as a calamity to that world. A monster that caused the rise of magic power and endlessly strengthened it, and that monster was Alta-Face. Her subordinates were shocked to learn this, and she added that using its magic power, this monster destroyed cities, erased lands, and swallowed seas. She said that their esteemed ancestors from Whiteout Village had challenged it many times, and after many years, they sealed Alta-Face underground. Although this brought peace to the world, occasionally, the entities now known as hands would emerge. The villagers soon realized that these hands were part of Alta-Face, so they tracked and cut them off. But after several centuries, they discovered that these hands had no evil intent, and although they sometimes caused demons known as Tsamika to appear, it was rare, so they eventually forgot about the menace of Alta-Face. Ferris commented on this story, asking if Alta-Face was the reason for the overflowing magic power in Alentor. The Grand White Priestess agreed, saying that as long as it was sealed, they could maintain harmony with the power of Whiteout. One of their companions asked if the hands emerging meant that Alta-Face had been revived. The Grand White Priestess said she didn't know, but whatever the case, she wanted to put her faith in the fairy tale members from another world. After that, we returned to Natsu and the others, who simultaneously attacked Alta-Face. Urza commented on the unique body of the monster, and Gray and Lucy said that if this monster was the source of the magic power, they had no other choice. Wendy enchanted them to increase their strength, and Natsu shouted to start, while Alta-Face continued to say how ugly that world was and that it couldn't be stopped there. Natsu immediately used his Fire Dragon King's Destruction Fist, while Gray used Ice Devil, Zeroth Longsword, Wendy used Sky Dragon's Roar, Lucy used Aquametria, and Urza used her Benizakura Flash. All their attacks hit Alta-Face solidly, but to their surprise, it didn't leave any damage, shocking them. Urza immediately told them not to stop, so they continued their assault. However, they were halted when Alta-Face released countless clusters of magic power, causing a blinding glow. Alta-Face continued to emit an extraordinary light, immobilizing Natsu and preventing them from using magic. Lucy wondered what was happening, and Wendy commented that the ether nano concentration was too high. Soon, Alta-Face caused a powerful energy beam to shoot from the ground to the sky. Natsu and the others were thrown back, and Gray irritably asked how they couldn't use magic while the monster was releasing so much magic power. Lucy said it was indeed strange. Irene suddenly woke up and explained to Wendy that it was an overflow, and because their magic power had been pushed to its limits, their bodies thought their magic power had reached zero. Wendy was shocked, and Irene continued, saying that, for instance, if they had something that could only display up to 99, what would the display look like when it reached 100? Wendy realized it would show 2 zeros. Irene agreed and said that was why their bodies mistakenly thought their magic power was at 0. However, reality was still different. The magic power it produced strengthened all of their magic power beyond their limits. Irene said she would help Wendy remember her body and asked how much suffering her magic power and body had overcome. Wendy's eyes widened as she recalled all she had been through and how she overcame all the challenges she faced. Irene commented that it looked like Wendy had noticed immediately and told her that her limit wasn't there. After realizing this, Wendy released a powerful aura that enveloped her body, making her appear even more powerful and more mature. Gray and Natsu were surprised, so Wendy explained that it was only temporary, and when she noticed her still small chest, she was momentarily speechless. Nevertheless, she quickly brushed it off and told everyone that it was just a misunderstanding of their bodies, and their magic power hadn't reached zero but had exceeded their limits. When Urza learned this, she began to think about it, and her aura gradually emerged. Wendy shouted for them to trust their bodies and remember how they fought. Soon, they each released their magic power, noticing that it was now reaching even higher levels. Wendy urged them to attack quickly because their state wouldn't last long, and they agreed, charging with their newly acquired magic power. They all attacked Alta-Face simultaneously, and it commented on their ugliness. Natsu shouted back, asking who cared if they were ugly or beautiful, and that no matter what others said, they did things their own way. As their attack hit Alta-Face, its face began to crack, and they soon managed to completely destroy the monster's face with their strength. Alta-Face crumbled into small pieces, and Natsu shouted that this was the meaning of being a fairy tale wizard. Natsu and the others couldn't believe what they had done as they watched Alta-Face crumble, and Wendy returned to normal after that. Gray asked if they had really won, while Lucy pointed out that the magic power was still high there. Urza wondered what they should do since they had destroyed what they believed was the cause, but why was it still like that? Natsu shouted that if there was still overflowing magic, he would eat it, to which Lucy said not to. Exhausted, Wendy said they had done all they could there, and suddenly the cave they were in started to collapse, so she added that their next task was to escape. Gray pointed out that they were underground, while Natsu regretted leaving Happy above. Lucy reassured them not to worry, saying that Virgo would connect them above ground. As the cave collapsed, the hands that had been appearing all around started to break and disintegrate. The villagers outside widened their eyes and began to cheer. Happy and Carla happily said that Natsu must have done it, and Toka was amazed by it all. Back at Whiteout Village, the situation calmed down, and the Grand White Priestess, along with Ferris and other subordinates, felt something. The Grand White Priestess asked if they felt it too, and they agreed, saying the tremendous magic power had vanished. Ferris was teary-eyed with joy, realizing that Natsu and his friends had succeeded. The Grand White Priestess wept, saying that their ancestors in Whiteout had struggled to seal Alta-Face, and she never imagined that it could be completely defeated. She quickly regained her composure and said they now needed to stabilize the world's magic power, so they immediately began the Whiteout ritual, creating a spell circle. She gathered the prayers of her companions, intending to use the power of Whiteout to harmonize the world. A magnificent light ray emerged from their shrine, shooting up to the sky. The light caused the remaining hands around the area to gradually disappear. The other villagers noticed that it was the power of the Whiteout village priests, thinking they were safe, and began to cheer in joy. After that, Lucy narrated that on that day, the magic power of Alinter surged briefly before subsiding to its original state. She added that with Alta-Face gone, she believed they no longer had to worry about the overflowing magic power. However, to maintain the peace and stability of the magic power, the power of Whiteout Village was still needed, and everyone there would be busy for some time. She also mentioned that the people doing evil under Celine were from Alinter and were judged and imprisoned according to Alinter's laws. At the time of their capture, Yuko commented that they would regret it, while Hakune wondered what he would do now. Mimi called out to Lucy, saying they should fight again someday, to which Lucy reluctantly replied that she didn't want to. Lucy continued her story, saying that they were the heroes who saved the village and the whole world. Or maybe that was just how she felt. So, they had a party to celebrate. Natsu destroyed all the buildings that the villagers had worked hard to build, and they also learned that undressing there was a more serious offense than in Earthland when Gray stripped. Urza, who usually restrained such things, got involved in a big fight, making it a loud and joyful night all around. Wendy was shown being the center of attention among the village women, while the drunk Grand White Priestess was uncontrollable, and Happy and Toka were flirting while Carla watched with a poker face. Lucy added that, however, there was one thing that troubled them all, and that was the disappearance of Celine and Suzaku. They didn't know where the two were, and there was one more thing they needed to worry about. They suddenly found themselves in another world, leaving their guild mates waiting for them. After those events, in the next scene, Natsu and his friends were preparing to say goodbye to the village. The Grand White Priestess suddenly hugged Gray, saying she wanted him to stay there forever, so Gray asked her to let go. Urza told the Grand White Priestess not to say that because the world was now safe. Ferris looked sad, while Toka was crying, saying she would be very lonely without Happy. Happy cheerfully said they would come back, while Carla stood on the side with a poker face. Toka suddenly approached Carla and asked her to take care of Happy, causing Carla to blush and say she wasn't Happy's guardian. Wendy noticed Ferris's expression and asked what was wrong. Ferris said she had caused a lot of trouble for them, but Lucy reassured her that she did it to save their world. Urza added that Celine tempted her, so she didn't need to worry about it. When Ferris tried to reason further, Natsu suddenly suggested punching her to make them even, which left Lucy speechless as she told him not to try that. Lucy scolded Natsu, saying he planned to hurt Ferris with all his might and pointed out that she was also a girl. This left Natsu speechless as he tried to counter. Ferris suddenly bowed and shouted that she wished they would hurt her until they were satisfied. Then she started crying, saying she didn't know any other way to atone for her crimes. Natsu happily agreed and told her to prepare for what he would give her, but Lucy tried to stop him. The villagers looked worried about what he would do, while Gray and Wendy also tried to speak to him. However, Urza herself stopped Gray and Wendy, surprising them. Natsu loudly told Ferris to grit her teeth and began to list the bad things she had done, like controlling his friends to make them fight each other. Ferris agreed loudly. Natsu prepared to punch hard and said that because of that, he got really fired up. He then punched Ferris, but in a playful way, which surprised her and made their friends smile. Natsu suddenly laughed and said it had been so long since he enjoyed fighting with all of them. He cheerfully suggested they do it again and start the Battle of Fairy Tale Round 3. Ferris looked confused and shocked, while Gray smiled and told Natsu that he thought he was going to hurt her. Natsu replied that he did, and she got a taste of it. Ferris's tears started to flow again, and Natsu pointed out that he thanked her from the heart. Ferris began to cry loudly, asking why he was thanking her, saying she didn't understand. Natsu just laughed while Lucy said that was just how their Natsu was. In the end, Lucy narrated that they all returned to Earthland. In the next scene, we return to Earthland, in Giltina, in the town of Dramel, where Lucy narrated that they finally made it back home. They were warmly welcomed by Makarov, Mira, and the others with warm smiles. She explained that their guildmates were very worried when they suddenly disappeared, but thanks to Loki, who traveled to that world using the celestial spirit world, everyone was brought up to speed. Natsu and Happy joyfully shouted that they were back home after a long time, and Juvia immediately hugged Gray, overjoyed to see him. She showed her concern for him and insisted on examining him thoroughly, asking him to strip, to which Gray responded that he was fine. Gray then asked how she was, and Juvia said she had been so worried that she made countless Gray dolls. Warren was puzzled, commenting that Gray's personality seemed to have changed, and Max agreed. Levi welcomed Lucy and Lucy asked her how she was, to which Levi replied that she was fine. Natsu then asked if Levi had laid her egg, leaving Lucy speechless, saying it wasn't an egg. Gajeel suddenly turned to Natsu, telling him not to bother Levi, irritating Natsu, who cheerfully challenged Gajeel to a fight. Gajeel, appearing more mature, said they were no longer children and questioned why they needed to fight over every little thing. Lucy quietly asked Levi what was going on with Gajeel, and Levi said she thought he was starting to grow up bit by bit. Natsu continued to annoy Gajeel by karate chopping his head, trying to provoke him, while Gajeel made a great effort not to react. However, unable to control himself due to Natsu's persistence, Gajeel finally snapped, leading to a brawl between the two, leaving Lucy and Levi speechless and retracting Levi's previous comment about Gajeel growing up. Lily asked Happy and Carla what had happened to Toka, and they explained that she stayed in a linter. Happy, seemingly giddy, said it was too bad, and Lily understood, having expected her to partner with Laxus since he didn't have an exceed. Laxus, however, said he didn't want a cat, while Bixlow joked that Laxus already had many partners. Freed then offered to be Laxus' cat if he wanted. Evergreen blushed and said that would suit Freed, surprising Elfman, who asked if it was true. Kana then asked if they had gone to Idolas, and Lee-Sana added, asking if the Idolas people were doing well. Wendy replied that they hadn't seen everyone, but they seemed fine and had figured out how to live without magic power. Curious about Mistigan's condition, Carla happily stated that he had become a wonderful king. Lucy suddenly told everyone that the Urza in that world had become a maid. Meanwhile, at a cafe, Urza and Jalal were eating sweets together, and Urza commented that he was still in town. Jalal explained that he couldn't leave until he saw Urza safe with his own eyes. And of course, he also wanted to ensure their dispute with the White Wizard was settled. Urza mentioned that according to Farah's story, the true White Wizard was someone else, and they didn't know their whereabouts. Jalal said it didn't matter anymore, and his real pursuit was the woman named Ferris, who had returned to her original world, so he believed she no longer had any malicious intentions. Urza agreed and asked what Jalal would do next. Jalal said there were still many parts of the magical world shrouded in darkness that he wanted to fight against. Urza told him he didn't need to carry all that burden alone. Jalal reasoned that no matter how much he was pardoned or who forgave him, as long as there was darkness in the world, he would continue to fight. Urza then asked if Jalal had stopped punishing himself, and Jalal explained that it wasn't a punishment but his way of life. Urza smiled at Jalal and asked if he could bring his way of life closer to her. Jalal's eyes widened in surprise as Urza held his hand and asked if he would like to join Fairy Tale. Jalal was even more shocked, and Urza added that they would also invite Merity. Before Jalal could respond, Urza told him he didn't need to answer right away and asked if he would consider it. Jalal remained silent for a moment, then agreed to think about it. Meanwhile, at the Wizard Guild Diabolos, Celine was bound in a room, severely wounded. George Risen commented that this was the Moon Dragon God and remarked on her beauty. Scarian, Madmole, and Kiria were in awe of Suzaku's feat, with Suzaku simply stating that Celine was a truly fearsome foe and that he had never fought such an opponent who even managed to injure his body so much. George was drooling with hunger, saying that once he ate Celine, he would gain the power to cross dimensions. Celine slowly opened her eyes, causing the others to raise their defenses, but George stopped them and asked Celine how it felt to be captured by humans, laughing at her. Celine asked if George was the one who killed Kernugi. George was puzzled, asking what she was talking about, so Suzaku confirmed that George had indeed killed Kernugi, and he had eaten Kernugi's flesh. Suzaku also explained to George that Celine claimed to be Kernugi's mother. George laughed, finding it fantastic that he could now eat the parent after defeating the child. George then strangled Celine, demanding that she transform into her dragon form, so he could show her how terrifying humans could be. Celine's eyes narrowed, and she slowly began to transform into her dragon form. Skarion and Mad Mole were worried, urging their master not to provoke her too much, fearing the consequences if she went berserk. Kiria, however, told them to relax, believing that since Suzaku had defeated her, there was no way she could win against George. Suzaku agreed, stating that George's power was far beyond his own, so Celine wouldn't stand a chance. Celine finished her transformation into her dragon form, and George was ecstatic, having waited a long time for the moment he could go wild. He declared he would show her his 4-beast dragon slayer magic. Celine immediately attacked with her massive front leg, crushing George in front of Suzaku, utterly destroying his body. Celine crushed their master like an insect, and the horror was evident on their faces as they couldn't believe what had happened. Celine arrogantly said that Carnegie was far from being a good child, but he was among those she loved, and now she had defeated his enemy. Suzaku's eyes widened in disbelief, questioning if Celine had only pretended to lose to see George. Celine acknowledged Suzaku's guidance, while Skarion and Mad Mole trembled in fear at the sight of their master's death. Celine told Suzaku not to worry, as she recognized his strength and thought it would be a shame to kill him. She pointed out that, in a way, he could be considered part of her child now. Suzaku still couldn't believe it, and Celine laughed, asking if he really thought a human could beat a dragon.